Angel stood by my side when I went through hell with my mom. He was there for me when she passed away, and he gave me the push that I needed to swim through the ocean of grief towards my passion for music. Plus, in a sense, he filled my void that my parents had left. His energy and role as a protector and provider reminded me of my mom, and he was also an older father figure type of guy. I loved him. What I was really attracted to was that protection and security and sense of peace that he made me feel. His energy felt familiar and comforting, and I latched onto that. I didn't want to see what wasn't working until my first big wake-up call in February 2015. That day, we were in his office listening to new music by Ariel Camacho, one of the artists he represented. Gerardo Ortiz, another artist, was also there. As we went from tune to tune, I noticed he left his phone on the table. He was talking to the guy, so I casually picked up and punched in its code, which he'd given me. I've never looked through his phone before, and I don't know what urged me to do so that day. But as I scrolled down his messages, I suddenly stopped at a name I recognized. It was a model that hang out in his office a lot and take pictures with his merch. A girl I was actually really cool with. I tapped to see the message thread, and my heart hit the floor. There was pictures of her ass and a text from him that said, "Yummy." My pulse started throbbing. I stood up, walked over to him, grabbed him by the neck in front of his clients. "You fucking asshole," I yelled, as my grip tightened in my fury. He just stared back in a drunken stupor. Then I released my hold on him, turned to my assistants, who had been in the room all along, and I said, "Let's go." I took his phone with me. He followed me home, and we had a massive fight and broke up that night. I was absolutely devastated and felt humiliated. It was very hard for me to trust a man after suffering the abuse by my father, which started when I was 8, when my parents had separated, and continued until I was 12. So feeling that sense of betrayal with Angel hit me like an extra hard gut punch. That was it. This time there was no going back, or so I thought. 2 weeks later, tragedy struck. Ariel Camacho, the artist who had been showcasing his new music at Angel's label that day we broke up, died on February 25th, 2015 in a car accident. I was so shocked and sad by the news that after days of not talking, I reached out to Angel. One chat led to another, which ultimately gave way to his heartfelt apology. He had fired all the models, cleaned up shop, and promised things would continue to change for the better, and I chose to believe him. Before my birthday, once we'd had moved into the Toluca Lake House, I had begun to set it up, decorate it, furnish it, hoping to make it feel like a home. I had to travel to Miami to record a 2-song Selena tribute for that year's Premios Juventud. I was over the moon with excitement to be called to participate in a tribute to someone I looked up to and admired so much while growing up. It was an amazing blessing, and I was determined to work hard to give my best performance yet. Meanwhile, J Balvin happened to be in Miami at the same time. Cue the drama. In February 2016, a photo of J Balvin and me had gone viral and stirred up rumors that we had a thing going on. Let me set the record straight. Right now, not true. The photographer captured a candid moment where J Balvin and I were crossing paths in an award show. He has his hand in his heart, and he was simply saying hi to me as I turned and greeted him with a smile. We were about 2 feet apart, and that was it. The media blew it out of proportion and started speculating that we were dating. They didn't know really much about my relationship with Angel because I kept it under wraps for protection of our privacy. They had a field day, and with Angel, with his jealousy streak at full force, began to wonder if the rumors were true. So when he heard that J Balvin was going to be in Miami that June while I was there, he totally lost it. At one point, even his aunt texted me, "You need to get a hold of Angel." I thought it was because she knew we were arguing nonstop during those weeks. But no. She told me she was convinced that I had cheated on him with J Balvin. Oh my God, what do I need to do for him to trust me? This is insane. I never cheated on him. My mind wasn't even there. I was always faithful to him, and no amount of texts or phone calls could ever persuade him otherwise. I had been fighting for my relationship for so long, and I had so many second thoughts because I loved Angel. I also felt if I gave up on the relationship and walked away, it meant I was failing. Yet I was exhausted from trying so hard, from carrying the weight of our issues on my shoulders. Angel was a provider by nature. He supported me in many ways, and I learned and grew so much with him. But he didn't know how to take care of my heart. I wanted to be valued for the woman I was. I didn't want somebody questioning my every move. It wasn't fair. It was time to make the wise decision and take care of myself. During the next few days, we fought, we talked, and we came to the terms with the fact that we were no longer in the same path. He was set on having a wife and more kids, and my heart was set on a career. Then came the final blow. It was July 1st, the night before what would have been my mama's 47th birthday. Janica had came over to our house with her dog to visit Johnny and me. And as we settled in and started to chat, Angel said in a passing voice, "Oh, aquí está todo tu circo." What? How dare he call my kids a circus? This was supposed to be my home as much as it was his. My family should always be welcome no matter where I lived. The comment threw me over the edge. I had reached my limit and enough was enough. I looked at the kids and said, "We're leaving." I booked a hotel room, packed Jenica, her dog, Johnny onto my car and took off. I couldn't take it any longer. The next morning, Johnny got ready and we went to the venue where we were holding La Noche de la Gran Señora, a concert celebrating our mother's birthday. Because he was scheduled to sing that evening and was over the moon with excitement, my family had been planning this event for months and we decided to make this one more intimate than the last two. It was an emotional day for all of us, so we always pour our hearts into it. After I peeled myself from the hotel bed and slowly got dressed, I drove back to the house and picked up my outfit for that evening. I parked in the driveway, walked up to the front door, only to realize that Angel had locked me out. I rang the doorbell repeatedly and I called him on the phone several times. Nothing. He knew that I had that event and he knew that it was important to me. And he knew that it was inside along with all of our stuff. I walked back to my car a crying mess, not knowing what to do. Devastated, I called my makeup artist and she said we can get you ready at my house. As I rushed over, she rushed to a department store and got me an outfit and shoes and saved my ass. After she was done working her magic, I got back in my car and drove to the event, my mind racing a mile a minute. How could he lock me out knowing I had Mikey and Johnny to look after? I had trusted him with my siblings who were my everything. I had dragged them into this unstable mess and now we had suddenly nowhere to go. It felt I had let them down, but I promised to make it up to them. My ex was now trying to get back with me, and it was tough because I still loved him. We'd been together for so long, and he'd been in the trenches with me, but I wasn't in love with him anymore. I was determined not to go back. So I poured my heart into my work and into the creation of my second album. Now that I had no one trying to keep me at home or feed me guilt trips for traveling to expand my singing career, I was free to do whatever I wanted, and I wanted more. I was ready to take on the next step and pursue a distribution deal to back up my second project. As I planned these next big moves, a new guy unexpectedly appeared on the horizon. The first time I remember meeting him was on July 2nd, 2016. Yes, the day after I broke up with Angel, the night of my mama's birthday tribute. I was sitting with my whole family in a small VIP section, just right of the club stage, feeling uneasy in a jumpsuit my makeup artist had so thoughtfully put together. Amid my desperation when I found myself locked up out of my own home. I didn't feel as cute and as confident as usual, and my heart was in pieces. Once again, I smiled to mask my pain, hoping to get through this event as quickly as possible. But my life was about to take a radical and unexpected turn, and I knew it. "You know that singer wants to bang you, right?" whispered Johnny in my ear, jolting me back to reality. I'll never forget that. "What?" I exclaimed, as he repeated in super matter-of-factly. "Yeah, he wants to bang you." "Stop it." "No, he doesn't." "Stop it," I said, laughing off my little brother's observations. "Yes, he does," he insisted. Curious, I turned back to the stage and leaning forward to catch a glimpse of the performance, and that's when I noticed that he was totally checking me out. I just smiled, and when he smiled back, I thought, oh shit, maybe he does. Lorenzo Mendez was the vocalist for La Original Banda de Limón, a banda I had listened to for years, a banda my mama loved. I had actually heard of him in passing through Omi, who said he was really cute and I had to check out and follow him on Snapchat. "He's the boy version of you," she said, "and you're both so funny." Okay, he's pretty cute, I thought, as I leaned back on my seat. No one had looked at me like that in a while because I was in a relationship close to 5 years. So it did make me feel a few fluttery butterflies in my stomach. But I was so heartbroken and I wasn't ready to let my mind go there. When the band wrapped their set and started climbing down the stairs, I glanced up and our eyes met. Then with his signature and white charming smile, he approached to me and casually said, "Hey, can we take a picture?" "Yeah, okay," I answered. I stood up and leaned over the staircase railing. He put his arm around me and we posed cheek to cheek, smiling for the camera. Then I said bye and sat back down, reveling in how good he smelled. On September 2016, just a few weeks after Lorenzo and I started seeing each other, we decided to go to Las Vegas to get away. And one night, Lorenzo pulled out a pop ring and asked me to be his girlfriend. How cute, I thought, and I immediately said yes to this sweet move, but I wasn't ready to make it official in the media. I was still dealing with my breakup and balancing the start of my singing career and my evolving relationship with my siblings. I just needed a little more time. Making public appearances with a boyfriend was new to me. I was used to keeping my relationship private. That's how Angel and I handled it for the 4+ years we were together, and it worked well for us on that end. I was hoping to continue that vibe with Lorenzo, but it was different. It seemed like everywhere we went together, the paparazzi followed, and he seemed to enjoy the attention. I actually brought it up with him a few times. It's funny, I used to go out everywhere with my friends, and I never got caught by the paparazzi. Maybe it's because they don't care to see you with your friends, but they do care to see you out with a guy. He replied as a matter of factly, yeah, maybe. We got into some pretty crazy things, and they never caught us, I insisted. He just brushed it off aside and tried to change the subject. I would have preferred to keep it private a little longer, but it was almost as Lorenzo wanted it to make sure that Angel knew we were together. It felt like his ego was at play, and he was marking his territory, telling Angel, this is my woman now. And I just decided to go with the flow because I didn't want him to think I was hiding him. When the news broke, Angel was hurt and upset, and he immediately allowed his jealous mind to think that I had been cheating on him with Lorenzo way before we even broke up, which was not true. He sent me a bunch of text messages. I can't believe you are doing this. If you don't get back to me now, I know it's probably you were already seeing this guy. No matter what I said, no matter what I did, he didn't believe. No explanation was good enough. As the heat of the moment subsided, he finally calmed down and said to me, okay, if this is the guy you want to be with, then that's fine. But honestly, I think he's a liar. He's a drug addict and he's a cheater. I chalked up his warning to jealousy and tossed the comment aside. My tío Juan had said something similar when he heard that I was dating Lorenzo. Look, I asked around about this guy, and I was told he's a really cool guy, very talented. And he is. But they say that he loves to party, and he does coke. That stunted me, so I straight up asked Lorenzo about it one day, soon after this, while I was in my closet folding my gym clothes. But he denied all these allegations. He swore on his father's life it wasn't true, and I believed him. This was in September. His father died out of the blue in October. I'll never forget that. It was a sunny October afternoon. I was in Jackie's car, and we were driving over to Temecula Valley wine country. I was told that we were getting together with friends at this winery and that they would be our location for our day. So I didn't think much of it. I figured it was just another workday filming the Riveras. Lorenzo had told me earlier that he had to go to Piolin's radio show to promote some music. I was a little bummed out because I would have loved for him to come with us, but it was fine. Meanwhile, back at the winery, all of my close friends and family had gathered with Lorenzo and his family inside of one of the venue's rooms to sit and wait for my arrival. Hey guys, we're screwed, said Janica suddenly. She saw the picture that my grandpa posted and liked it. Grandpa had published a photo of himself and Mike captioned, a surprise for Chiquis. When I saw it, I knew something was up. Tia Rosie quickly came up to the rescue and called us to try to cover the tracks. Baby, so you guys didn't know, but we were surprising you guys. We were going to try to make peace with the family. We got everyone together, a lot of us together, and for once, we wanted to invite Tío Lupe. And we talked to Tío Lupe for a little bit, but it didn't go too well. So he left, explained Rosie. But you guys should still come. She insisted that we should make the most of it anyway. We didn't completely buy the story. I've always had a sixth sense that awakens when something's off, but I went with the flow. After being in the car for so long, I was relieved when we finally arrived. Wine was exactly what I needed to unwind. We walked through the winery's main entrance and over to the outdoor tasting room, where some of the family was casually waiting for us. I said hi, sat down at one of the tables, and asked, "What happened?" "I think it was probably too much for him," said Rosie. Rosie tried to explain it all away, but I was still suspicious that they weren't telling me the whole truth. I knew something was up, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was. You guys are scaring me. I feel like you're not telling me something, I said, a little emotional. Everyone was acting super weird, but I just let it go. I figured we might as well enjoy while we were all together, so we went ahead with the wine tasting. Then we all got up and strolled over to the venue's large veranda to take in the beautiful view of those earthly Riverside County hills, lined with bright green vineyards and dotted trees. It was a stunning day without a cloud in the sky, in the height of the sun's golden hour. We couldn't have asked for a better weather. This is kind of like our life, a panorama, I said, relaxing into the beauty of the landscape and stretching my arms out, ready to start philosophizing. As my eyes dropped into the road below, I suddenly noticed someone on a horseback approaching us from the left. The hell? I said, suddenly taken back once I realized the rider was actually Lorenzo. He started waving at me, and I waved back, but I was so confused. As I began to walk over to meet him, my extended family and my close friends began to pour out of the large wooden doors to my right. My God, what's happening? Hold on. Is this what I think it is? I said as my heart pounded and tears slowly filled my eyes. My knees were locking in place and the butterflies were causing a hurricane in my stomach. Mikey came over and hugged me, and I looked at him. Hi, brother. Then I began to take a few steps back and uttered, No. I was so overwhelmed. Then Jackie walked over to my side and I asked, Is this real? I feel like I'm dreaming. I took a few steps forward and said to everyone, Why didn't you guys tell me? I could have brushed my hair. They all laughed. Lorenzo dismounted the horse and walked over to me, and I said, Hi. Hi, he replied. Oh my God, Lorenzo, I said nervously, covering my smile. Janae, he said as he grabbed my right hand. Amid the flurry of emotions, I whispered, It's the other hand. But then I knew. I just wanted to say that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, began Lorenzo. They say marriage is hard, but I really can't think of anything harder than being without you. So I think this is probably going to be the easier thing. And I want to ask in front of all your family and everyone else, will you marry me? I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I said yes, in disbelief. It was mid-November. Lorenzo and I had just flown out to spend a few days in Las Vegas for the Latin Grammys. Clearly, this is a party town. So we went out the first night to catch the Bad Bunny concert at one of the high-end clubs. I was drinking, but not that much. I remember the night clearly. Lorenzo got wasted. The second evening was a repeat of the first, and I was getting a little annoyed. I never liked it when Lorenzo went out in his drinking binges, but when I tried to talk to him about it and said, You're drinking too much, could you please just have some water? He'd come back with, Come on, Johnny, loosen up. We're out here having a good time. Just relax, let it be. I hated that he made me feel like a party pooper. So I went with the flow with the first 2 nights, but by the third one, right before we headed out, I said, Look, I have a long weekend of work ahead of me. And he did too. So I'd love it if we didn't stay out too late tonight. I wanted to create a united front as a couple, so that when it was time to go, we'd already be in the same page. Sure, he said, agreeing to the plan, but when we were at the club, that understanding and that supporting guy was nowhere to be found. I went along for the ride, but when I realized that he was on another bench, I leaned into his ear and said, Hey babe, I think we should get going. No, you're always trying to command everything, he whined. Let's have fun. And we have fun, and we had an agreement, I said, sitting down in one of the club's sofas. Stop trying to be my mom, he said. I'm not trying to be your mom, dude. But we have to be responsible. Yes, I understand we're in Vegas. We're with friends. We're celebrating. But don't overdo it, because when you get sloppy, I'm afraid you're going to get in trouble. You don't have to worry about me. Stop taking care of me. You're not my mom. Why don't you just be my girl? He pushed on. I am being your girl, but there's certain things that I don't like. I couldn't trust him. Anytime he stayed out later than usual or went away on a trip, I always thought that he was going to do DRUGS. It would keep me up at night. Sometimes it felt like he was cheating on me with the no sugar. You just want me to go with your fat-ass friends, he said. There, he went on one of his no-induced aggressions again. You know what? Fuck this, I said, as I got up in his face and then turned around and left. My friend Helen and I had bumped a ride from a woman we barely even knew, but we made it back to the hotel in one piece. I took off my makeup and I climbed into bed, knowing that I needed to rest, but it was impossible. I kept tossing and turning, checking my phone for a text, waiting in the silence of the night for a call, but nothing. I could have been lying hurt on the street, and Lorenzo would have been none the wiser. The lack of concern really got under my skin. On the day today, we had a great time together. We were good friends, but when it came to the real-life stuff, I wasn't sure if we were on the same page. He was spontaneous, while I was a planner. He had great ideas, but oftentimes didn't see them through, while I created action plans that I set out and executed and finished. At times I wonder, are we fit for one another? Had I looked on the other way too many times? I didn't lose my kindness, but I didn't like the feeling that I was giving more than I should either. I have always had issues with setting boundaries. It's still a work in progress, and I know that it was creeping on my relationship. The abandonment issues I started carrying as a teenager turned me into a people pleaser. I was afraid that if I stood my ground, those that I loved would leave. And that's what was happening with Lorenzo too. I didn't want to lose him, but I knew that I had to get my priorities straight, so as not to lose myself in the process. At 9 in the morning, I heard the door unlock and watched Lorenzo tumble in, totally shit-faced. Didn't he know that I had to fly out at 11? Was he doing this on purpose to avoid the discussion that would inevitably follow this episode? I was so irritated and upset. Then it hit me. My God, is this what my future would be like? As I watched him snoring through his hangover, I thought, I can't do this. I just can't. I took off my engagement ring and wrote it on the hotel notepad. Thank you, but no thank you. And I left the note on the desk. He stirred awake as the bellman rolled my luggage out of the room and said, Janae, where are you going? But he didn't get up from bed. He barely moved. So I just left. As I tackled this tidal wave of emotions and concerns, the show had to go on. My second album, Entre Botellas, was set to release on March 2018. So the photo shoot was in the books, and no matter how downcast I was feeling that November, I had to sit it through. In a way, the timing couldn't have been better. The title of that album was meant to symbolize bottled-up emotions. For a long time I felt like I'd been floating underwater, unable to come up for air. That's why I wanted to be in the pool in the album cover. I wanted people to feel the sadness when they saw it. A sadness that it wasn't hard for me to portray that day, because it was actually in front and center of my heart. I honestly felt like I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. A few days before the shoot, Omi and I were driving home from running errands, and I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. I was absolutely depleted and full of sorrow. I honestly thought that if I went to the hospital, I'd be able to rest. All I really wanted to was curled up in a ball under the covers and sleep it all away. I was tired of always having to be strong. Instead of the hospital, Omi pulled over to the side of the freeway, and I just cried and cried and cried. And then I yelled and I let it all out. I'd been bottling up so many emotions for so long that, at times, I actually felt like I was drowning. And you can see it in that album cover. The sadness in my eyes that I was acting. It was pure and raw truth. Lorenzo apologized and we made up. A few days after our Vegas trip and after a lot of thought, I invited him to come over to my house, and we sat down in the living room to talk. If you don't control this alcohol thing, it's going to mess up your life. I forewarned him with an authentic concern. It's social drinking, he replied, dismissively. Then he added, You don't trust me? I trusted him in the sense that I didn't think he was out there being a hoe. But I was losing trust in his word, which is equally serious. If you say you're going to do something and then don't follow through once, twice, 3, 4 times, that eventually wears the other person down. I'm not lying about something crazy, he said. I just feel like you bash me too much. It wasn't just the Vegas blowout. It was the lack of follow-through and the white lies that he kept spinning to cover up his ass and to justify why he hadn't texted me back one night or why he got home so late another day. I don't have time to put up with bullshit. I know what I want, and I don't want a man who can't tell me the truth. I finally blurted out. I apologized already, he whined, puzzled. There was a clear lack of communication. He just didn't seem to get where I was coming from. You know, Janae, you act like I'm out there fucking bitches, but I'm just drinking and talking, and usually when I'm drinking and I'm talking about you. Ask everyone. Ask my cousins. Ask all the people who were with me, he said. But why though? Why do you feel the need to be drinking all night? You knew I was upset that we were fighting, but you didn't come after me and try to fix things. I know, but I was with my cousins, and we were in Vegas, the city that never sleeps. I wasn't doing anything wrong. He was always pointing the finger back at me, like I was the crazy bitch for thinking that he was cheating when he was acting like a saint all along. Look, I just want you to put more effort into this relationship. And if you're really ready to be married, you need to stop doing this stuff, I said. Okay, I'm gonna stop drinking, I promise you, he said, never admitting that he had a COKE problem. You know I love you. I love you so much. At least I'm not cheating on you. I'm just drinking. I'm sorry, Janae. I'll prove to you. Just give me one more chance. It wasn't the first time that we had issues because of his drinking, and it wouldn't be the last. He liked to party. My Tío Juan and Angel were right. Before making any final decisions, we decided to go to couples therapy. I went in focused talking about the two big issues that were holding me back from truly committing to him wholeheartedly. His excessive drinking and his inability to keep his word. It wasn't like he was drinking every day, but when he did, he would binge drink to the extreme. He'd follow it up the next day by saying what he thought I wanted to hear, just to please me to cover up his fuck-ups. He'd stop the argument in its tracks by looking me in the eyes and telling me how much he loved me. Then came the kisses. He'd kiss my lips, my neck, and do everything in his power to get me turned on, which would inevitably lead to sex. He followed that up with a dose of laughter, and with all that tension orgasmically gone, I'd cave in and say, okay, fine, I forgive you. Let's give this another shot. But his words began to mean nothing to me, because he never followed his promises through with actions later. After greeting our therapist and sitting down on the sofa across from her, I opened our couples session by saying, from the beginning of our relationship, I think the biggest issue that we had is his binge drinking. When you say binge drinking, what does that mean? Asked the therapist. Well, I don't drink every day, said Lorenzo. But when I do it, I just do it with the fellas. She doesn't drink at all, so you know, it's a huge difference. So maybe for her it's too much. I mentioned that I had spoken to his mom, and that she had similar issues with her husband. She said Lorenzo's dad was never unfaithful, but that she felt that he drank too much. It got so bad for her that she decided to leave him, taking the kids and moving from Mexico to Colorado for a year. She was determined not to go back to him, but he followed her, stopped drinking and smoking, and became a changed man. I couldn't help but to see the parallels between his story and Lorenzo, and that happy ending gave me a small ray of hope. Then I described the Vegas blow-up to her. Why does his drinking upset you so much? What's happening for you that's making you fearful? Asked the therapist. Because he lies, I said without hesitation. When I do mess up, said Lorenzo, she has a strong personality, and I'm gonna have to hear it for a good while, you know? And when I start questioning myself, am I good enough for her? I'd rather lie. What's the thing that started and created the fear around you being honest with Janae? The therapist asked Lorenzo. She doesn't have to be with me. It's easier because she's a busy woman. She has a lot of things going, so maybe it'd be easier for her to move on to the next. And that kind of scares me, because I do want to be with her, he said. Funnily enough, what he didn't seem to understand is that the very mechanism that he was using to stay in the game with me was actually pushing me in the other direction. Has she ever done anything to make you feel justified in that fear? She asked. She has been engaged 3 times. That kind of scares me, he said, avoiding the question. Have I done anything to make you feel that way? I asked him. No, not really. Yes, I've been engaged 3 times, I said to the therapist. I guess now that I come into this relationship, my tolerance is very, very low. It's just so fucking frustrating. He needs to come back and just be honest. That's it. Believe me, I don't think I'm being irrational, I said with tears welling up in my eyes. I'm just at a point where I've been together for a year and this isn't going to work. I'm okay with walking away. I had reached my limit. I was tired of protecting him, trying to make him see what he called social drinking was a much bigger issue. I could no longer continue to push him to be better. Just trust me, he said. When someone trusts me, I become a better man. Wait, how could I do that if I didn't fix his drinking problem? We were caught up in a loop that was going nowhere. And rather than helping, the session was beginning to aggravate us even further. It was clear we had to compromise, somehow meet in the middle. But neither of us knew how to get there. We were totally stuck, and that feeling just made me want to bolt. I was 32 years old, and I didn't feel any time to waste. Either we worked it out and stepped up for each other, or we let it go. As the year came to a close, everything he did began to irritate me. I was so angry because I felt that he robbed me out of something that had initially been genuinely exciting, planning our wedding. Nevertheless, we continued to talk. One night, when we got out for dinner, I told him that the only way I could start trusting him again was if I saw that his words reflected on his actions, and I wasn't willing to settle for anything less. Lorenzo, I don't give you problems. I don't hide my phone. I tell you where I'm at, what time I'm coming home. I'm a woman of my word, and I do my best to be that way. I'm trying, and you've given me a lot of reasons to run away. And I just want certain things to change before we figure out where this is going, if this is going anywhere. He just stared back in silence and then said, It hasn't been the easiest. You're a great girl, everything I've always wished for in a woman, so I'm here and I want to fight for us. I heard his words, but it was hard for me to believe him. If you want to fight, then fight for us. I felt like he didn't look at me the same because I was no longer that loving, giving girlfriend and because I was calling him out on his shit. And that was really discouraging. I know I wasn't looking at him the same way either. It was hard. I felt like I couldn't speak my truth. So by the start of 2018, we put the moving in together and the engagement on hold. We said we'd try until trying was no longer an option, but I honestly thought that was it. I hated the idea of losing him, but I already lost so many important people in my life that I knew I could handle it. There was still love in our hearts. The question was, could we find our way back to each other? Then came February 14, 2018. He was in Mazatlan for work, and we clearly weren't going to be spending Valentine's Day together. But I thought we'd at least show up in some other way. The hours ticked by. I stayed up that night waiting for him to text me or call me, seriously worried that something might have happened to him. Nada. When I finally got a hold of him, I said, What the fuck, dude? What happened to you? Oh, something happened to my phone, he replied. Someone ran over it, I swear to you. Okay, so are you coming home already? I asked. We were still trying to work things out, and I hadn't completely canceled the idea of moving in together. No, I'm going to stay, he said. I thought he remained in Mexico for an extra day of work, but later that night I saw that in his stories that he was partying it up, big time. His work had wrapped the day earlier, and that was it. I had enough. I opened our messages thread on my phone, and in a fury I typed, I'm fucking done. Pressed send and blocked his number. After our February breakup, Lorenzo and I didn't talk for more than a month. At first, I thought there was no going back, but as the weeks crawled by, my heart ached for him. I began to post little clues on Instagram and Snapchat, like Jesse and Joy's song, Me Dueles, knowing he'd likely see it and understand I was speaking to him through those lyrics. Then on March 2018, I traveled to Mexico City to promote the upcoming release of my sophomore album, which Lorenzo had helped me with a lot by coming to the studio and providing encouragement and singing tips and recording some vocal tracks. It just so happened that he was also in the city at the same time, so he DM'd me. Can I take you out for dinner? I was in such a vulnerable spot. missing him and also hurting after a big fight that had distanced me from Omi, thankfully only temporarily, and my best friend Ellen, unfortunately not so temporarily. That I caved and said yes. We met up at a Japanese restaurant, and I was wearing a sleek red coat, and he was looking sharp in a blue business-like suit. Sitting in that table across from him, so many weeks apart, I thought, fuck, I love this guy. And it was like we picked up right where we left off, chatting, joking around and laughing, which made me question why we broke up in the first place. Janae, you're the woman who taught me how to love. He said that to me that night. Women that I've been with before never put themselves as high as you do. You want me to open the door for you, give you flowers, and you want to be loved the right way, and I've never had that. I just stared into his eyes and let him speak, eager to hear what he had to say. Yeah, I never needed to do the things that I do for you. You want to be courted while I'm used to women coming after me. So with you, I have to put on an extra work, and I'm not used to that. It wasn't that bad, was it? I wondered, as I listened to him, hoping to justify the blast of emotions, and desired of capturing my heart. But I feel that sometimes it's just never enough, he said, tears filling his eyes. Sometimes I think I don't deserve you. You're just a great woman, and I don't deserve you. It almost felt like that he had the ability to cry on command. He'd often resort to tears during our fights. Were they real, or was he just a great actor? I'm not sure, but they were working, I thought. Well, I get it. Maybe I do expect too much from him. I do have high standards. I'm sorry, but I want to be treated the way I treat you, I said. I go out of my way. I'm always paying attention to the details, and I needed you to do that too. Okay, well, he promised. I was just never taught that. With you, everything has been so different, and shit like this really gets to you. Yeah, because I want to be treated like a queen, I replied. As we finished our dinner and we were close to asking for the check, I finally said, okay, fine, let's try this again. When he opened up like that, when he became vulnerable and showed me the willingness to change, I was once again hooked. Our talk felt so sincere that my heart urged me to give him another shot. Sometimes it came down to an honest apology. It's the key that unlocks the possibility of forgiveness in my heart, and once again, he managed to open the door. I honestly thought that we could make it work this time. Plus, I was in love with him. There was no denying that. I still want to marry you, he said, as he handed me back the ring I had returned a few months earlier. Please wear it. I agreed on one condition. It's tainted by the last year's pain, so you need to have it blessed first. Once he did that, I put my engagement ring back on, and by that summer, he slowly began to move into the home I had recently purchased. Neither of us was ready to give up on the other just yet. Our story clearly had more chapters to play out. However, to be honest, my doubts were still strong that year. Whenever we talked about our past breakups, I linked them to his drinking, and he made his usual excuses. I don't drink every day, it's just social drinking. I like to have fun with my friends. And then disarming me by tickling me and saying, come on babe, don't be mad anymore. Or he said something totally out of the blue like, look at that bird, which would distract me from the conversation, and then he hit me with one of his jokes and make me laugh. He was so good at deflecting arguments that I didn't even realize it was happening. He has a way with words, and I feel he knows how to place himself in a story and understands what others need to hear so that way end up feeling bad for him. They see him as the victim of his circumstances. I've seen him do this with his parents, with the media. Hell, he even did it with me. By the time the conversation is done, everyone's like, poor Lorenzo. I see all of this clearly now, but back then, I tried to point out what he needed to change for us to work. Say, you know me, Jenny. You know my heart. Yeah, I guess I do, I reply, somewhat confused as to how we arrived here. Jenny, you've forgiven worse things in your life, like your dad and stuff that happened with your mom. Why can't you forgive me? Fuck, I say. I guess you're right. And I fall for him all over again. Then he'd do something dorky and make me crack up, and that was it. We kept going even though our issues remained unresolved. I think love sometimes really is blind. The months flew by that year, and still friction, but we continued to do our best to listen to each other and work things out. It was confusing. He was still my best friend, despite our differences, and we continued to laugh together. We also had a special bond that made me feel like I could be my authentic self with him, part of the reason I felt for him in the first place. We were both Mexican American, we both spoke Spanglish. I felt like I could talk to him about anything. What was going on with my family, my deepest thoughts, and he got me. Even when he left the house wearing mismatched socks or a onesie, he'd say, "Oh my God, you're so freaking cute. Fuck it, let's go both to the store in onesies." I love all that about him, so I latched onto those peaks in our relationship and pushed forward. Doubts, and more doubts continued to pound me as we entered June. So much that during the celebratory escape to Las Vegas with my girls for my birthday turned bachelorette weekend, I couldn't help but express that I was still worried Lorenzo might not truly be ready to get married. We still had unresolved issues, and I felt that we had some growing to do. Yet I vowed to do everything I needed to do to be a good wife. If it doesn't work out, I told my friends, it's not going to be because of me. I think they were taken aback that I was already talking about the possibility of divorce. My friend Vanessa had already expressed her concerns early in my relationship. "This isn't the guy for you," she said to me, over drinks one night, during one of our many heart-to-heart talks. "I feel like he isn't who he says he is. I think he's using you." "Look, this is my life, and I'm going to do what I want," I replied. We bickered like little besties who were more like sisters. "You're right," she said at the end. "It is your life, and as your friend, I just have to tell you what's on my mind." By that time last week, before tying the knot came around, I was so stressed out about how messy everything was between us that I wanted to throw in the towel and just cancel. My soul felt heavy. Deep down, I knew I shouldn't go through with it. But I thought, fuck it, I'll make it work. I can change him, I can help him. We'll figure it out. Her wedding was the talk of the town. The media was constantly mentioning it on their shows and on their publications, speculating where and when it would take place, because I decided not to sell anything to any outlet. I wanted to keep it that sacred day for us. I didn't want to have to worry about what broadcast and what they would or wouldn't say about us, what we were wearing, what we were saying, and so forth. I didn't want to be judged that day. I just wanted to enjoy my family, friends, and soak in all of it without the pressures. So I kept the date from being released to the public, and asked all the guests to sign NDAs for this sole purpose. The plan was to eventually share some behind-the-scenes footage and the final wedding video, but I wanted it to be my own time, through my own platform. At least, that's what I planned. 3 days before the wedding, the shit hit the fan. Someone leaked our e-invite invitation to the media. It was splashed across the screens of all sizes. I found out like everyone else did, on national TV. And the show that had the audacity to break this story didn't even bother to blur out the location's address. If you ask me, that's just malicious intent. I was fuming and crying. How could they do that? This was not the price anyone should have to pay as a public figure. It just goes to show that no matter how you treat the media, many of those outlets would turn things around and benefit their shows without even giving it a second thought, no matter the emotional damage they may cause. Sure, my life was pretty public, but I did have the right to have some privacy, especially when it comes to such a blessed moment like this one. With my emotions at an all-time high, I stopped for a moment and thought, wait, whoever leaked the invite had to be part of the wedding. We'd been so careful, and we almost had managed to pull it off. Sure, there's always a chance something might leak, but I never would have imagined the media would go and publish the date and time and address with such an indifference and disregard. What were we going to do now? My first reaction, let's change the ceremony's location. My team and I immediately got to work, and I reached out to countless possible venues. I was even ready on giving up on getting married in a church. By finding a new venue for the ceremony in such short amount of notice, and with guests traveling here from near and far, was impossible to coordinate. Meanwhile, Lorenzo kept saying he was sorry. But it wasn't his fault, right? I was so stressed out, I felt like my head was about to explode. The only other option we had was to beef up our security, so I agreed to hire 10 additional guards to give us the extra protection we needed at the church. We also ordered several black umbrellas, because I wasn't about to give these assholes the satisfaction of getting a shot of me in my wedding dress. We also had to forego releasing 2 doves at the end of the ceremony because we could no longer freely access the exterior of the church without being persecuted by the media. Nevertheless, we would make it work somehow. I refused to let them get the best of me and ruin my day. Oh shit, I muttered, overwhelmed. I've talked to my dad on the phone a total of 3 times. The first call happened in the summer of 2016 while we were filming the Riveras. After Jackie had reinitiated contact with him and visited him in prison, she was very happy with the newfound relationship. They were speaking regularly and sometimes even twice a week. It still made me uncomfortable. One day, while on one of those calls, she mentioned to him that she was driving over to my place, and he said that he'd call back once we were together. She sprung this on me, and as soon as she walked through the door, and I didn't even have time to react before the phone started ringing. The last time I spoke to him had been in the court 10 years earlier, when he was in trial for abusing Rosie and me, and he didn't even look at me. My chest hurt, and as we stood by my kitchen counter, and Jackie answered on speaker. Mikey was sitting on the living room quietly watching us. So many things were crossing my mind, and as we waited for the prison to connect the call. Am I supposed to be talking to him? Is this okay? Am I betraying my mom? Then Jackie said, I'm here with Chiquis. And I just looked at her. I was wide-eyed and in full panic mode. I had forgotten that I had a dad. She passed the phone to me and insisted, he wants to talk to you. I was practically hyperventilating. Hello? I said shyly, not knowing how to begin the conversation, and trying to push the phone back to my sister. He said hello back, and I replied earnestly, This is really strange. I wanted to speak to you, but I don't know what to say. He eased me into the conversation by asking how my business was going. His voice sounded different, but yet I quickly recognized his low-pitched, soft-spoken tone. My stomach was doing somersaults, and I had spent more than half of my life without him, digesting the fact that he was no longer around. But when I heard him on the other end of the line, I thought, oh my God, that's my dad. I have a dad. For a moment, I forgot about everything that had happened and why he was calling from prison, and I started to fill him in on my life. It was so bizarre. How could I trust him after what he had done to me? The situation was becoming way too overwhelming, and I just felt I couldn't chit-chat any longer. I was saved by the operator. You have 60 seconds remaining. I yearned for that parent, the one that would give me advice, but he hadn't been in my life for 20 years. And we were skipping over crucial steps that needed to happen before we could get to this point. After we hung up, I honestly didn't know how to feel. I didn't like that he decided to pop back into our lives after my mother had died. Was it because he was afraid of her? Or was it because now that she's not around, he thought that he could manipulate us into having a relationship? It was working with Jackie. But I couldn't reconnect with someone who abused me, and from what I had heard, continued to stand by his reasoning that what I said happened and what he did to me was actually just something my mom had put in my head. Wouldn't he be able to admit the truth and finally apologize? These were all questions I hoped to ask him one day, if the opportunity presented itself. I was ready to have that conversation with him, to open old wounds and go there. I was ready, but he wasn't. The sound of the call from him came a few months later. This time Jackie wasn't there to mediate. He called on his own free will. I actually missed his first few attempts, but then finally answered. Hola, mija, ¿cómo estás? He said. He only speaks Spanish. It was another very on-the-surface type of call. He just wanted to know how I was doing. I honestly didn't know how to respond. It was almost like talking to a stranger. That call probably lasted 5 minutes, if that. Then about a year after his initial contact, I decided to go see him in prison. But he wanted to see Jackie without me. It took so long to get to that point, to gather up the courage to face my abusive father again, to give him the benefit of the doubt, to see if he had repented, to allow him to speak, only to be rejected. I didn't get it. After doing the work and trying to let my guard down ever so slightly, my protective shield went up again in full force, and I wasn't sure if I could ever bring it down again. When Jackie came back to visit, she explained that he was upset about something I had said in an interview about his sentencing, but he continued to avoid talking about what he had actually been sentenced for in the first place. And Jackie didn't seem to press him on the matter either. There are probably a few people who will ever understand what it's like to take the stand and testify against their father and then have to deal with the public backlash of being called a liar by him and his family. Why the hell would I lie about such a traumatic event in my life? Why would I willingly scar my memory with such scenes? This was one of the reasons I've always had the urge to be extra honest and demonstrate that I have nothing to hide. The third and last time we talked was on my wedding day. He told Jackie, "I want to talk to your sister. I want to pray for her, and it makes me sad that she doesn't have one of her parents there." Jackie asked me what time would be a good time for him to call, and I said after getting my hair and makeup done. Jackie was my maid of honor, so she was in the room with me, and she held up the phone and as the call came through. My heart was pounding beneath my wedding dress as we waited for him to come on the line. He asked me how I was feeling, and I took a big, deep breath and tried to control the tears that were threatening to burst out of my eyes and ruin my makeup. He congratulated me and gave me a marriage advice. As they say in church, it's a challenge, right? The key is mutual respect, and that's what makes marriage. He wished me all the best, and then Jackie asked him to lead us in a prayer. The crazy thing is that I am no longer angry at him. I don't want to waste any more time experiencing the pain of my past. I simply like to have the face-to-face conversations one day. I think it's necessary for my soul, and his too. I see myself saying, "Hey, what's going on? So are you ready to admit what you did to me? Are you going to apologize?" That's all I really need. Sensing his remorse and receiving his apology. And that's what really would give me enough peace to begin to consider giving him a chance to right the wrongs and start fresh. I honestly don't know if I'm right or wrong as far as allowing him to have such easy access to me, but I want him to know that I'm not mad at him, that the door is open and I'm ready to have this sincere exchange. Without it, there's really nothing to talk about. Although other calls that we've had felt somewhat superficial and empty. I felt so vulnerable after we hung up with him. It was a lot. Too much. I've managed to compose myself and went downstairs to the white car that awaited me. As we drove down to the church, the excitement of the big day started to build in me. I looked down at my mom's diamond-encrusted butterfly ring, which had been recovered from the accident wreckage, and I had chosen as my something borrowed. She usually wore it for interviews or meetings, but not so much for her shows. Even though I wasn't a diamond girl like my mama, wearing this ring on my wedding day felt like I was carrying a piece of her with me. Then I glanced at my heart locket carrying two pictures of my mama, which I had hung for my bouquet of white peonies, and that I could hold her near my heart. This was it. There was no turning back now, no running away, no bolting. It was a beautiful day. I was about to walk down the aisle to join the man that I loved in holy matrimony and begin the rest of my life. And in that moment, I was honestly happy. When we arrived, the media frenzy was in full effect. I had made such a huge effort to keep this moment private, even foregoing large offers, more than $200,000, from different media outlets just to keep this event as intimate as possible. That's also why I refused to add it to the reality series. This wasn't a show. This was the most important day of my life. I didn't want to hold an event that included cameras, gossip, or having to be extra cautious of what we did or said for fear of being taken out of context. I didn't want to work on my wedding day. I yearned for this to be our sacred moment, one filled with peace, just for the two of us and our loved ones. As the driver parked the car in front of the church's majestic entrance, all I could see were bodies. It felt like a stampede rushing towards us. My jaw dropped as I watched the chaotic spectacle unfold. It wasn't just the media. Since the location had been nationally broadcast, there was also a big gathering of fans who'd come from the near and far just to be part of the event and to catch a glimpse of us. Some of them had been camping out there since the crack of dawn. It was insane. Anxiety started to set in as I wondered how the heck I would make it to the actual church in one piece. The security guards opened the black umbrellas and created a tunnel for me to step in as I exited the car. There was pushing and shoving as cameras tried to get the money shot, and I felt like I was on the verge of a panic attack. I cried so hard when I finally entered the church that I scared my grandma. When I took several deep breaths and pushed past the initial desolation and fury, they would not ruin this day for me. No one would. Closed my eyes, connected my soul with the presence of God, and that my mama's energy shook the craziness, and locked arms with my grandma as we began to walk down the angelic aisle. The third of the way, she passed me to Mikey. He walked me for another stretch and then delivered me to Johnny, who accompanied me to the altar and gave me away to Lorenzo. Many people have wondered why I didn't ask my grandpa to walk me down the aisle. The truth is that, although I love him very much, I've been sad about my abuelito for a long time. I don't agree how he handled things with my grandma when they divorced. After 40 years, he just stopped taking care of her. That hurt. I respected him and admired what he did for our family, but I've always been closer to my abuelita. She helped raise me. She was there each time my mom and I were on the outs. She never turned her back on me, and without my mom to do me the honor, it felt fitting to ask her and the two most important and steadfast men in my life, my brothers. As much as I wanted a traditional wedding, in this particular detail, staying true to myself came first. When I joined Lorenzo at the altar, we started giggling with excitement as we walked up to the pastor. My heart felt at peace. The ceremony was beautiful and touching, and since we both envisioned the traditional union, instead of writing down our vows, we decided to give a short speech to each other at the reception. We exchanged our adieus and sealed our wedded bliss with a kiss, and the pastor presented us as Mr. and Mrs. Lorenzo and Janae Mendez. And, with intertwined hands, we walked up to the aisle and celebrating with our family and friends and smiling wide. We didn't know what life had in store for us, but in that moment all the doubts and fears had melted away and we were genuinely happy. 2 months after the wedding, I found out through my social media manager that at our reception, Lorenzo and some of his friends were partying harder than I thought. He said he saw Lorenzo and his friends offering coke to other guys, and I had made him promise not that he wouldn't do that. Disappointment settled into my heart. I began to silently drag around the weight of it all. It was so painful. I know how to put up with a lot. I have a high tolerance for other people's issues. I try to empathize with them and forgive them. I believe in second chances because none of us are perfect. A relationship requires love, but also compromise. It means every day we wake up wanting to make it work because we choose to be with that person. But it's a two-way street, and each person has to do their part. It took me a while to realize this. Instead, I began to carry out the load of our problems on my own and suppress my emotions. Maybe we were adjusting to married life. Maybe I was being too hard on him. Maybe. That summer, we had a trip to Israel planned with his mom and sister. But I wasn't feeling it. Something urged me to stay home, but I didn't want to disappoint his family. So we hopped on a plane and first stopped Greece. That week was a blur of fights and misery. What am I even doing here, I thought. Then we flew to Israel. I had been looking forward to this for months. It was a magical place, but it went beyond my expectations. No matter what you are going through, it's hard not to connect to the land on a spiritual level. The tension between us began to ease, and we decided to get baptized together in the river of Jordan, to cleanse our souls and start fresh together. His alcohol and drug issues had begun to take over his life, so to celebrate a new beginning, inspired by Jesus' 40 days fast after his baptism, I said, "Why don't we do a 40-day cleanse?" He totally agreed and relief washed over me. Maybe this was our shot to press reset button on our marriage. Back home, we continued to stick to our cleanse. We both gave up alcohol. I also avoided coffee and was following a pescatarian diet. We were in good spirits and once again getting along smoothly. But before our 40 days were up, Lorenzo was called to do a show in Mexico City, and I was in the middle of filming a talent show, Tengo Talento, as one of the judges. So I couldn't go with him. But it was fine. We were both working and seemed to be getting along in a better place in our relationship. So what more could I have asked for? On an October afternoon, while he was away, I was in my seat in the show set, with an incredible strange feeling began to course through my body. It was like something was trying to attack me, and I was thrust into a fight or flight mode. Then it was replaced by deep sadness. I was told that this cleanse could cause this type of spiritual earthquakes, but knowing this and experiencing it is a different story. I quickly grabbed my phone and texted Lorenzo. I really needed to connect with him. He replied worried and said, "Call me as soon as you're out of your chair." Slightly relieved, I wiped away the tears that were rolling down my cheeks. I put my phone away and I pulled myself together for the show, unable to completely shake off this weird feeling. When I was done, I immediately dialed his number. No answer. Strange. He knows what time the show ended and he knew my schedule. Maybe he fell asleep. I called him again on my way home. Nothing. And then I called him again when I got home. Nada. "Lorenzo, what are you doing? Why aren't you answering my calls? I really need to talk to you," I texted. I reiterated, and I had never felt like this before, and I was a little scared. I waited. The minutes ticked by with no reply. Did something happen to him? Despite the 12 hours I had just spent working on set, I couldn't catch a wink of sleep. 2 of my friends came over and spent the night with me in my room because I was afraid to be by myself. I finally dozed off at 5 a.m. and woke up at 9:30 to the sound of my phone ringing. "Why didn't you answer my calls?" I asked Lorenzo when I picked up. "I failed you." My heart dropped. Shit, he cheated on me. "What do you mean you failed me?" I said. "I'm on my way home." "Wait, where are you?" I asked. "I just landed. I'm on an Uber. I'm on my way home," he replied. Then I started to get pissed off. "You saw my messages. You saw my missed calls, and you got in the fucking plane without as much as a text to me?" My worry turned into fury. "Yes," he said. "I'll be there soon." Those 30 minutes to 40 minutes from LAX to our home felt like days. My mind was reeling in and my emotions were through the roof. And I called Pastor Dad. "Oh my God, I think he cheated on me." He tried to calm me down and urged me not to jump into conclusions. I was so scared, but I left it up to God's hands. Lorenzo walked through the door looking totally depleted, as if he hadn't slept a wink, and he reeked of alcohol. "I failed you," he said again. "Did you cheat on me?" "No, I didn't." "I failed you, Janae," he repeated and started crying. "I'm sorry. But did you see my messages? You knew I was going through something." Yes, he did see my text messages and missed calls, but instead of answering, he flipped his phone over and decided to talk to me later. Something shifted in my heart that day. I can't count on this asshole. I couldn't count on him for money or for stability. I married him anyway, thinking he would at least take care of my heart. This isn't going to work. That was the first time this thought crept into my mind since our wedding. He not only disregarded my feelings that day, he also broke our pact. We were just 1 week shy of the end of our 40-day cleanse. 7 days. That was it. But he didn't make it. That's what he meant when he said he failed me. This brought to light another theme that's been bothering me for a while. He couldn't finish what he started. He couldn't keep his word. These issues were a part of a bigger problem. His addiction. We'd been down this road before and had even reached a point of acceptance. He acknowledged he had a problem, but then he put it all on me. "Why are you tripping? This is a disease. You need to help me. Call rehab for me. Call counseling." "No," I replied firmly during that conversation. "Those are the calls you need to make." He expected me to take him by the hand and lead him to recovery, but that's not how recovery works. "No, Lorenzo, this is your journey." I tried to explain to him time and again. "If I do that, then you're going to resent me later. This has to come from you." He never understood that. He interpreted it as a lack of support, while all I was trying to do was help him. That day in October was a before and after. It wasn't just that I couldn't count on him. I honestly had the feeling that he had cheated on me while he was away. I kept replaying what he had said about the night before in my mind. If he was awake all night with his friends, and I was telling him I had to overcome such a strong emotion and needed to simply hear his voice, why avoid me? I wasn't even mad at that point. And now that he was back, something shifted in his demeanor. I can't pinpoint it, and I will likely never be able to prove it. But my sixth sense was tingling, and it was hard to ignore. As the weeks trudged along, I had to dim my light to make sure he felt okay. And that began to eat me up inside. When you're with the wrong person and you ignore all the cues, the energy of that constant sadness and quiet tension sucks you dry. Then came our white party in December. I invited people from the music industry, a lot of my friends, his friends, and cousins. It was supposed to be our end of the year bash, a moment to celebrate and relax. And he did it again. He offered someone a bump at our party. In our house. I was furious, embarrassed, and felt so helpless. The next day, we were supposed to pick up his daughter together, but he decided to stay home because he didn't want to deal with my anger. So I went with his friend's wife instead. During our ride, I felt so overwhelmed that I brought it up to her. You know what? I never talked to you about this, but I'm miserable. I'm married to a little boy. I kept repeating that last phrase because it was suddenly sinking in. I didn't care if she told her husband. I'm miserable, I'm sad, and he's eating me up alive. I don't know what else to do. I keep trying and he keeps disappointing me. I even talked about his substance issues with her. She let me get it all out of my chest and then said, I totally understand. Why don't you tell him to go to rehab? Give him an ultimatum. I know he loves you so much. I needed to vent, but I was also looking for reassurance. Is it me? Am I the one fucking it up somehow? My own issues and insecurities came into play, but they were exacerbated by his reverse psychology. Somehow he always managed to blame whatever he did on me. His go-to phrases still resonate in my mind. You're so controlling. You're so jealous. You're so insecure. You need to stop taking your insecurities out on me. He mind-fucked me so much that I started looking at myself differently in the mirror. I began to wonder if he was right. No one had ever shaken my confidence like that in my life. Maybe it was because I actually care about what he thought and I loved him. This mental back and forth was driving me insane. Throughout the holidays, I began to bring up my sadness and disappointment with my friends, planting little seeds to be remembered later. They still recall how miserable I was, but I was married, so I felt I had an obligation to make it work. I also loved him deeply, more than anyone before. January 2020 came along. New year, new us, maybe? I wasn't convinced, but I was trying. We sailed through that month with our usual big blow-ups, followed by stalemates. This was my best friend, someone I connected with in another level. I could be my raw self with him, and I didn't want to give that up. So I kept turning that blind eye to our unresolved issues, hoping something would eventually click and finally we figure it out. Yet, as the weeks passed, I became quietly devastated. I couldn't count on him, and that worried me for the long haul. Lorenzo was signed to a record label, but he wasn't happy how it was going. He complained that they didn't listen to him or take his ideas seriously. He said he wanted to be an independent artist, but he couldn't come to terms with the fact that his path takes a lot of money. I was already helping him, but I didn't have hundreds and thousands of dollars to invest in this gamble. I encouraged him to take action, but he did nothing. I found him brands that were willing to work with him, but he turned them down saying, I'm a musician, I don't do brands. And I ended up looking bad with these companies. The problem was that his career wasn't his main source of income, so he had figured something out to bring money into our household. That's why when he brought up having kids, I'd say, how are we going to have a baby if you don't even know what you want in life? Getting pregnant meant putting my career on a standstill for 9 months, plus the time that we would take for my body to get right again. How could I do that without him pitching in financially? Then March 2020 hit, and the world was brought to its knees of COVID-19, and life became to a screeching halt. We didn't quite grasp the gravity of the situation at the time, and I think most of us thought that we'd be home for a couple of weeks and then everything would go back to normal. Masks and social distancing weren't even a thing yet, so we decided to make the most of our time at home by throwing a small house party. Things went south real quick that day. Lorenzo got wasted. He was doing bumps in the back of the house, and once again he offered my friends some, which they turned down. When you're married, there's certain things that you don't share with everyone in order to protect your partner. So his bump offerings really brought his problem out into the open and put me in an awkward and embarrassing spot. Once the party died down, most of our friends had left and the remaining little group went inside to hang out and unwind. As we were chatting away, someone came through the back door. We looked at him puzzled. Everyone left me behind. He whined, clearly drunk. He was someone we knew who had been at the party, but I couldn't help but wonder where he had been while we were saying goodbye to the rest of the guests. Was he in the back of the house? In the office? A friend of ours who was still there was also a little concerned, so he said to Lorenzo, why don't we go check and make sure he didn't take anything? Lorenzo, who was still zoned out of his mind, didn't know we knew this guy, and instead of playing it cool, he lunged at him like a monster. I immediately jumped at my feet and stopped him, saying, relax! He's fine, just let him go. The guy quickly stumbled out of the front door without saying a word, but Lorenzo went after him again. Leave him alone! I screamed. What the fuck were you doing in my house? Yelled Lorenzo, getting up in his face. The guy was wasted and didn't understand what he was talking about. The next thing I knew, Lorenzo took a swing and landed that poor guy straight on the floor. I was furious. He'd lost it. We were in quarantine. We weren't even supposed to be having a party. What if somebody recorded him? He was drunk and high, and he just hit one of our guests. He didn't even fight back. I couldn't believe it. I started hitting him to make him snap the fuck out of it. Then I dragged his ass inside the house, and now I was the one who lost it. One of our friends quickly stepped in and pushed me away because I was ready to go in on Lorenzo's face and let him have it. Meanwhile, the guy outside finally managed to peel himself off the ground and leave, while nursing his busted lip. As if that wasn't enough, Johnny had witnessed everything and exploded, and he started to yell at Lorenzo. "Calm the fuck down, dude! This is my house!" yelled Lorenzo. "No, this is not your house," replied Johnny. "Stop, Johnny!" I pleaded. "Please, just let me handle this." I always wanted Lorenzo to feel comfortable in the house, to know that it was his home too. But he had issues with it because I was the one who bought it. Even though Johnny had never really liked Lorenzo, he respected him and was cordial because of me. But he wasn't able to hold back that night. After all, he carried the responsibility of giving me away at the altar, and he took that to heart. On our wedding day, he gave Lorenzo his most prized possession, and he expected him to take care of me as such. That night, Johnny was beyond disappointed. He was hurt. Something broke for him right then and there, and after he snapped, he stormed off to his room. I sat down on the couch, miserable. The first 3 weeks of quarantine had been so blissful. The three of us had such a nice time. We were getting along great, cooking together, hanging out, and watching movies. We really bonded as a family, and I thought we were finally getting somewhere. And then it all just went to shit. That's when Lorenzo went in on me. He started screaming, "How could you defend that guy?" I was done. I had no fight left in me, so I apologized. "I'm sorry that I got upset. I'm sorry that I hit you." He was so drunk and high that there was no reasoning with him, no room for logical conversation. So I figured I should just patch things up and we could talk later. It was a temporary fix, but it worked. We all calmed down and went back to chatting when suddenly Lorenzo got up and pulled his pants down in front of me and the two couples who were still there with us. I didn't know where to look. It was so embarrassing. Drugs turned him into a little buffed up devil with no filters and no limits. I hated it. Eventually, I decided to call it a night. I said goodbye and went upstairs to my room and fell asleep. At around 3 in the morning in the same night, I woke up and something made me check the security cameras. When I did, I noticed Lorenzo was trying to sneak out of the house. He knew where the cameras were, so of course he was just tiptoeing out the side door with a friend. Why did I wake up right then and there? I don't know. But I stormed down the stairs, fuming, and I reached him as he was climbing into his friend's truck. I made both of them get out of the truck and gave them an earful, like a mom with a rebellious teen. "You guys aren't going anywhere. We're in quarantine, but we're just gonna go buy beer." "No!" I ripped each of them a new asshole, and they came inside. "You always tell me what to do," screamed Lorenzo, but I ignored his whining and walked them to the studio at the back of the house. "Stay in here. You guys aren't going anywhere," I said. A switch flipped on Lorenzo, and he sprung into attack mode again. But this time, I was the target. "Lorenzo, sit down," I said, trying to keep him calm. But he came at me, wrapped his hands around my neck, and started to choke me. And then he spit in my face. Johnny watched everything go down from his bedroom window, which had a clear view of this area of the house. So he rushed down with a big barrel in one hand, ready to charge at Lorenzo to defend me. That's when Lorenzo let me go. "Johnny, please," I yelled. "You're gonna make it worse. Stop, Johnny, please. He's drunk, stop." Then Lorenzo turned his eyes on Johnny, ready to fuck him up too. But Johnny went back to his room. Then he grabbed the vodka bottle and threw it at the wall. Lorenzo finally took off and didn't come back until later that morning. But when he came back, what followed were waves of excuses. I was drunk, I didn't know what I was doing, blah, blah, blah. Funnily enough, he never admitted that he was high out of his mind, and he'd always deny it, then say, "Yeah, I was just a little bit, I never buy it, they give it to me." There was always a solid reason behind the magical appearance of substances. It just happened to be there. "Yeah, and you just happened to snort it?" I thought. "Okay, then you need to stop drinking," I said. "I'll do it with you." and we agree on another cleanse together, and we forge ahead yet again. Alcohol and drugs are like best friends. They balance each other out so you can continue to consume both of them all night long. So I figured if we took one out of the equation, he'd be clean for the other two. I also figured that, knowing his problem with drinking, I had to step up and stop drinking with him. Stop feeding to his disease. I knew that what he did to me was not okay, but I accepted his excuses, hoping that this was the rock bottom he needed to finally get his shit together. That was March. April was our dry month. A sudden sense of peace and quiet followed our tsunami. We had fallen back into our pattern, trying to make it work, feeling better, reconnecting. But it was a false sense of hope, the calm before the storm. I had organized a Cinco de Mayo party at home, but I was thinking of canceling it because even though I wasn't the one with the problem, I wanted to support Lorenzo and help him stay sober. I had heard what my sister Jackie and her friends had said to me. If you know his problem, then you need to be a better wife. I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. I didn't want to cancel. Maybe a part of me wanted to test him. Maybe it's just what I needed to let loose and have some fun after more than a month of quarantining at home. Regardless, that party was the beginning of the end. Rather than fret over his behavior and worrying about what he was up to when he went to the back of the house, I simply ignored him. I basically threw it in the towel. I no longer gave a shit anymore, and that bothered him. When he grabbed the mic to sing with the grupo we hired for a gathering, he shoved it in my face playfully, but really, he was trying to pick a fight. He knew I was upset. I remained standoffish with him, which made him come over even more and give me a kiss, and showing off his love for me. Then he dedicated songs to me, which felt fake, like a front to make our guests believe he was a good husband. My level of annoyance was through the roof. Just leave me alone, I thought. You know what? We're not okay. You're fucking with me. He did this so much that I reached my limit. We could be on no speaking terms at home, but then he'd comment on one of my posts. My sexy baby, and add heart emojis. I wouldn't respond because we were in the middle of a fight. But then who looked like the crazy, bitter bitch in public? He was great at faking through his funk, which is what he was doing at our party. This was irritating to Johnny too. He and Lorenzo hadn't been on good terms since March. The tension was thick at home. Quick to react to Lorenzo's foolishness, Johnny went upstairs and came down wearing his 27 hat, which was Angel's logo, just to mess with him. When Lorenzo saw him, his demeanor shifted. He stared Johnny down, and I immediately noticed Lorenzo was ready to pounce. I sprang towards him and quietly yet fiercely said, "Don't you do that, because if you do, it's something I will never be able to forgive." The tension left his face, and we enjoyed the rest of the party as best as we could. May went downhill from there. We were fighting a lot, and Lorenzo was in and out of the house. He and Johnny were no longer in speaking terms, and I felt stuck in the middle, trying to reconcile my son with my husband, all while attempting to figure out what to do about my marriage. It weighed heavy on my heart. "You need to fix things," I'd said to Lorenzo, which he responded, "Well, he doesn't like me." And that would inevitably lead to another one of our blow-ups. And then he left. He was gone for the last 2 weeks of May, out of the house, out of sight. I thought it was finally over, but then he asked if we could talk in person. We met at a sushi place. I purposely chose that public space to de-escalate the situation, because I didn't think he'd like what I had to say. "I want a divorce," I said, looking him straight in the eyes. I was very respectful and calm. "I know you love me, and I love you too, but I want a divorce." He was super pissed, but kept his cool. Then he said, "I'm gonna stay in the back of the room because I'm still married to you. I'm not leaving the house until you divorce me." He added that he wasn't going to return my car either, because I'm your husband. Okay. At that point, I didn't care about the car. I wasn't going to call the police, like some friends suggested. He needed it, and I had another one. It was fine. I wasn't out to destroy him. I just wanted to end this toxic relationship. It wasn't doing either of us any good. The day after I told him I wanted a divorce, he partied the night away. Someone recorded him completely wasted, and it was splashed all across the media platforms. I think this was a mini wake-up call for him. He realized that if he didn't get his act together, the public would come down on him hard. That's when he decided to check himself into rehab. I found out through a friend. Oh shit, he's really going, I thought. It was a step in the right direction. To be honest, it gave me a sliver of hope. You don't stop loving someone overnight. I saw him through the window when he came over to pack his stuff, and I went downstairs to help him. I know we're not together, I said, as I folded some of his shirts and put them in his bag. But I want you to know that I support you. I'm here for you. I'm very proud of you. I was truly moved. Could this be the fresh start we needed? Had the tides finally turned? When his friends came to pick him up, we said a tearful goodbye and moved beyond words. I let my guard down and we hugged. Those first 2 weeks while he was away in rehab, I really missed him. I cried a lot. It was almost cathartic. Despite the suffering, I felt so much peace knowing that he was somewhere safe. It also gave me the opportunity to reconnect with myself. It helped me realize, okay, I can be alone, but I won't deny it. Seeds of hope were planted in his decision. Maybe he'll come back different. Maybe he'll be able to make this work. I still loved him a lot. Each day I prayed, I meditated, and I made sure to support him in his journey to recovery. I helped pay for his treatment to make sure he could go. I answered every call he made from rehab. My phone was basically stuck to my hand at all times. I wanted him to know that I was there for him, but that I wasn't doing anything bad, and that I wasn't taking advantage of him being away. I aimed to give him peace so that he could focus on himself. Each time we spoke, I assured him, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. I brought him letters. I sent him a care package with clothes and books. I talked to his counselor. I did what I would have liked to experience had I been in his shoes. Unlike what he said a few months later in an interview, we did talk. I was there. I wasn't alone, and I supported him, through and through. Then June 26th came along. It was my birthday, and I needed to get away, so I rented a house in Ensenada, and I invited my girlfriends. I wasn't planning on a girls gone wild trip. Far from it. I just needed some quality time with my friends, a much-needed breather from my current reality. As I started to relax into the weekend vibe, my phone rang. It was Lorenzo. You're with the girls, and I don't know what you're doing, he said, flipping out. You're drinking too much. I'm worried about you. Wait a second, I replied. I know you're in rehab and you're trying to fix this issue, but I'm fine. I'm a responsible woman just celebrating her birthday. I knew he was feeling insecure because I was out, but I was just spending time with my girls at a house overlooking the sea. I wasn't the one in rehab. I wasn't the one with the problem. How could celebrating my birthday be a bad thing? Why call me to make a scene and ruin it for me? Then he said, I want to get out early. I want to celebrate our wedding anniversary together. Lorenzo, no. You have to complete your stay. You have to see this through. You have to finish something. This is important for me too. As much as I liked you to be here for my birthday and for our wedding anniversary, for me, as your wife, it's important to see that you are finally starting something and finishing it. I kept trying to get this point across, but he was obsessing over what I was doing in Ensenada. I'm with my friends. I'm answering your call. The only guy here is JP, Helen's husband. Other than that, it's just us girls, Lorenzo. Please. That just triggered one of our now classic fights. And while we were in the thick of it, I thought, oh no, he's still the same person. He's just been disguising it. We hung up, and I did my best to shake it off. I was determined to enjoy the weekend, regardless of his hissy fit. Once I got back from my birthday getaway, he convinced me to pick him up from the recovery center 3 days shy of completing his full month. I drove over carefully, making deliberate turns to make sure no one was tailing me. The last thing we needed was a media circus. When I confirmed that the coast was clear, I entered the center, which was thankfully far removed from the street. I was hoping to have a calm conversation with him. I wanted to say, look, I'm with you, but you still scare me. I'm still worried, and I think you still need to work on yourself. I think we should be separated. I had it all planned out, but when I saw him, it all flew out the window. He seemed like a changed man. It stopped me on my tracks. We hugged, we got in the car, and drove to San Diego. I had booked a hotel room down there. I thought it was a neutral space that would serve us better at this crossroads in our relationship. No one knew this except for my assistant. I told everyone else in my close circle that I was going to a different location. A lie because I didn't want to risk the media getting wind of where we were. We desperately needed this quiet time together to talk things out and figure out our next steps. It was an intimate and private moment, and I wanted to keep it that way. I was so adamant about this that during our drive, I kept checking to see if anyone was following. Nada. The coast was clear. Meanwhile, Lorenzo was talking up a storm. Spiritual awakening at rehab, his life plans, and how inspired he felt. And I slowly went into thinking, I don't want to be with you too. Oh my God. This is all I ever wanted. For you to have a plan. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought something had finally clicked with him. I could no longer have to tell him what to do. He now had a plan for his life, for us, and for the future that was lucrative and could bring us financial stability, and would also help with his sobriety. My heart swelled with joy and relief. He wanted to open a rehab center and launch a related clothing line, inspired by his enthusiasm and change. I was all in. We've been down this road before with no luck. He knew I had a certain amount of money I wanted to invest, and in the past, when I had suggested we do business together and asked him, what kind of business would make you happy? Would make you feel good? He said a bar and grill. Lorenzo, how am I going to open a bar and grill for you if you have a problem with alcohol? Those conversations always ended in a fight. This was the first time I said, fuck yeah, I'll invest hundreds and thousands of dollars in this. I believe in it. We'll be partners, and we'll bring in the friend that you met at rehab. It was an idea that finally made sense. He was so enthusiastic that he started wondering if he should give an interview to announce this plan, but I suggested, write a book first. He could use that to get into all the details of his journey and how his idea came about. It would also give him the time to continue to work on his sobriety, while we began to drum up a business plan and work on the opening. I was hyped up. I was happy. I couldn't believe this was finally happening. We reached San Diego and a good streak continued. He was once again that sweet man I had fallen in love with. He even set his phone aside and wasn't taking any selfies. And he's such a selfie queen. He woke up at 7 each morning and got on his knees and prayed. He spent time outside reading his books, and I just watched him in awe. Those first 2 weeks were absolute heaven. My prayers had been answered, I thought. The look in his eyes and the way he was expressing himself and the way he was so patient with me, I felt a little sad or a little worried that this was too good to be true. It was everything I had hoped for and more. If I needed reassurance, he was there. He didn't get angry. He was so patient, and it was beautiful. Then it happened. He insisted we go out. I really didn't feel like it, but I did for him. He was jumpy, worried about his outfit. It doesn't matter, I said. We're just going downstairs to sit on the beach. I watched him get dressed up, and I didn't bother to put any makeup or anything. Why? It was just us. When we were walking by the ocean, I saw him. A paparazzo, camera in hand, snapping away at us. What the hell? My heart sank. The last thing we needed were headlines splashed across the media saying we reconciled. They had already caught wind that we were on a break. We scrambled back to the hotel. Upset doesn't even begin to cover it. He tried blaming my team for the leak. The same who zipped their mouths while he was in rehab and publicly called it a spiritual retreat. The team who said nothing about his alcoholism or his drug use. Why would they leak this? I still think it may have come from his side. They had details no one could have known, like how we hugged. I picked him up at the rehab center. No one should have been able to see us there, yet somehow they were able to describe that hug. I don't know. Maybe he thought the pressure from the media saying that we were back together would push me not to go through with the separation. What he didn't know is that he was shooting himself in the foot by pulling that maneuver and trying to control the narrative. I'll never know for sure if it was him, but in retrospect, there's much more to one occasion since we known each other where the media conveniently showed up when least expected. This is me speculating now, but it's also where my head went even back then. Now that our location was discovered, we packed our things and headed back home. That's when we tested positive for COVID-19. Trying to put a positive spin on this downward spiral, I thought. Maybe 15 days just by ourselves at home with no one around will help us come into full circle. We nursed ourselves back to health, and Lorenzo continued to hang on this sobriety. It was a positive sign in my eyes. But then he started to slip in his recovery. He wasn't reading his books as much, and I once again, the wife, pushed him to do more to stay on track. Yet he was making small yet crucial changes, like sharing his location when he left the house, so that we could work on building back our trust. And I appreciated that immensely. Now I needed him to make amends with Johnny. Once we were COVID negative again, Johnny came back to the house, but he made it clear that he wanted out. I kept telling him, he's different, just give him a chance. But Johnny wasn't buying it. He stopped talking to me. He walked by and ignored me just to make his point. It broke my heart to feel Johnny so distant. I also thought Lorenzo deserved another shot, since he was putting in the work. When I talked to Johnny about this recently, he said, When the fight happened in March, I didn't like the feeling I got at all. It's when I finally saw Lorenzo for who he is. Then I started to put other pieces together through April, May, and June. And by July, when you got back from San Diego, I kept thinking, how the fuck does she not see it? It's right in front of her face. And all I wanted to tell you, you're fucking things up. You're fucking things up again. But he didn't. Not in those words. He did say he thought Lorenzo was a master manipulator. It was a possibility. I couldn't deny it. But I still thought that he had a shot at saving our marriage. Then his old habits started creeping back into his daily behavior. I continued to be patient. Lorenzo, you're switching shit on me. The only reason I decided to get back with you is because you had a plan. Because I felt safe. I had caught up a glimpse of what the sense of stability and security that I had been yearning for. And that inspired me to stick around. Plus, I already had agreed to invest my money in this rehab center idea. 2 weeks after we talked about it, I had opened an entity for it. He was a 50% shareholder with me. I was all in. It was for a good cause, and it would hold him accountable in terms of his sobriety. But he started backpedaling on this, saying he wasn't sure. He wanted to write a book or commit to talking openly about his sobriety yet. He wanted to leave the door open to having a drink with me down the road and not be judged by anyone because of it. So he suggested we start on the clothing line instead of the center. How are you going to start with the line when there's no mission behind it? I laid it out for him. Your book comes first, then the rehab center, then the clothing line. He could say all he wanted about my issues in our relationship, but business is my middle name. I've proven time and again that once I have a mission, I do everything in my power to manifest it. Yet he continued to pull away from that business idea, so I laid out a plan that included music. Come out with the center and clothing line and get a real handle on your sobriety. Then release a badass album and we'll push it. As a businesswoman, I didn't feel that it was feasible to invest in an album first, based on what he was standing. Well, this is the problem, he said. You're seeing me as a business and not as your husband. Oh my God, there's no way of getting through to him. I was looking out for him. I never said I wouldn't support him. But I didn't want to put my money into something I didn't think was well planned. Lorenzo, I'm a businesswoman. I worked so hard to get where I am. And when it comes to such big investments, I've learned the hard way I need to be smart. I need to set aside my emotions and see if I think the plan is feasible. From a business perspective, I can see that you're not disciplined. You're not responsible. You're not a man of your word. And you have an addiction problem. So why the fuck would I invest my money in you? Because I love you? Because you're my husband? And then what? I was brutally honest. But he kept repeating the phrases that it would work best for him. You have to support me as my wife. That's what he meant when he later began to say in interviews that I didn't support his career. Really? Guess who paid for No Me Medi? The video he shot back in February 2020? Guess who paid for the hair and makeup? I even directed the photo shoot. And what was he doing on set while filming the video? Drinking and doing drugs. That's where I drew the line and when I decided to stop investing in his career, because it was almost like investing in his addiction. Up until then, no matter how mad we got with each other, we didn't stop wearing our wedding rings. But as this conversation unfolded, he took off his ring for the first time. For 3 days, his ring finger was bare. He also chose to stay in the guest room. I was working, so when I got home from my 12-hour call each night, we've had these long, exhausting conversations. Our feelings were raw and exposed, but we were going nowhere. Then he suggested couples therapy. And I said, I'm not going to call a therapist or a counselor. If you really mean it, then do it. I was so sick of always taking the initiative. I needed him to take charge and show me he meant what he said. Nothing happened. He never called. During one of our last conversations, I suddenly sensed that he was 1 foot in and out of the relationship. I hadn't felt that before with him. It was like he was trying to say that he wanted to leave, feel free, liberated, but he didn't have the balls to verbalize it. Meanwhile, I started thinking, praying, and searching for an answer, for the right next move. I was giving myself time. Then he was asked to go to Arizona with the radio show he was working on, and he planned to merge that with a stop in El Paso to visit his family. It was the first time he'd be flying without me post-rehab, and I was feeling insecure about this. You can't go to Arizona without me, I said. What do you mean? I don't like how that sounds or how that makes me feel. I want to feel free. I don't trust you yet. We're not there. He went anyways, of course. He had to for work. But when he got back, he was acting different. His attitude had changed. One night, when we got intimate, he couldn't even finish. Then he confessed, I feel like my career would do better if I weren't with you. I'll never forget that. I went into my office and prayed. Then we talked again. What do you want to do, Janae? Look, Lorenzo, I love you very much, and I want this to work. And I think that I've shown you this. And I don't feel like you want to be in the relationship anymore. The conversation was long and drawn out, and by the end of it, I said, I think we should go our separate ways. Okay, Janae, he said, looking at me straight in the eye without arguing in the contrary. He kissed my forehead, grabbed my hand, and added, Let's pray together. I'm always going to love you. If this is what you want, I'm going to respect it. But could you just tell me again why this is happening? And this is your decision, right? No. This is our decision, I replied calmly. Because you're not willing to do the work I needed in order to trust you again. You haven't gone to your meetings, and you haven't made amends. I've been telling you to. No. I just wanted to know why. I respect your decision. I just wanted to know, so that when people ask me, I know how to respond. I was absolutely drained and barely had any energy to react to this last infuriating comment. I'm not doing this, I said and went to my room. Within an hour, he started packing his belongings and putting them in a truck he rented. As I watched this unfold, I decided to leave before he was done because I couldn't handle seeing him go. I met up with a friend after a bite to eat, and tears began to streak my face like an incessant rain. Then I got a text from him. Something's telling me that I shouldn't leave, that I should stay. I don't know what to tell you, I replied. No answer. I got home to find everything that he possessed gone, even his Listerine. And his junk drawer was empty too. He really took everything, I thought in dismay. It was so final. He didn't waste a second. I guess that's what he really wanted after all. I stepped into the shower, hoping the water would help me wash away my grief, and then I noticed his body wash was also gone. It was a calculated move, and the message was clear. He wasn't coming back. Despite it all, my hopeful thoughts were relentless. Maybe he'll stay in a nearby hotel. Maybe he'll call to say he's going to therapy. Maybe he'll say he wants to make things work. Maybe he's just gathering the strength to fight for me. The next morning, Omi, who didn't know what was going on between Lorenzo and me, casually said, Hey, Lorenzo's in Arizona. Meanwhile, I had received a text from him with a picture of his hand. He was wearing his wedding ring. Nunca te voy a soltar. Te amo. I still have hope for us. Why was he wearing it now that he was gone, when he didn't wear it for the past few days? And why was he in Arizona again? My gut felt something was off. Was there someone else in Arizona? I was so tired of questioning his actions. I sent him a long message expressing my disappointment, and then I changed my number. Given how this was ongoing, and knowing he'd likely go to the media soon, on September 16, 2020, I decided to post about our separation. With a heavy heart, I'm informing you through this platform that Lorenzo and I have decided to separate. It was a mutual and difficult decision, but it was necessary. I went on to express our need for privacy and thank everyone for their support. I was done with the speculation. I needed to control the narrative, and I didn't want to give him the chance to flip the story like he'd done before. I made it clear that we were both accountable. My idea was to treat the situation with the respect it deserved, without pointing fingers and without hurting anyone. Lorenzo lost it. Looking back, maybe he thought that he'd tap out for a month or two, do his thing, all the stuff I wasn't comfortable with, and then come back to find me waiting for him with open arms. But the veil had finally been lifted. There was no going back. Some of my friends were a little offended because they didn't know this was going on, but I didn't have time to consider their feelings. I had to act. The last thing I needed was to look like a fool if he was caught red-handed in Arizona. The media would have had a field day. Unfortunately, this post opened another can of worms with my family. We were just about to launch a mini quarantine tour with my tío Lupe called La Gira del Campo when I announced my separation. Juan and Rosie reacted like I had done this to them on purpose. They said that this was awful timing because now the media would ask about our separation instead of the upcoming concerts. Jackie agreed with them. Instead of asking me how I was, they said they thought I acted selfishly, that I could have waited. But what they didn't realize is that I had already waited too long. Don't let the red flags come back to haunt you like I did. If something feels off from the start, don't ignore it. Listen to your gut. As women, you know that feeling we all get when we think, this is questionable. Well, you better believe it's fucking questionable. I had that instinct in my past two relationships and chose to ignore it. That's me giving people the benefit of the doubt, or thinking, maybe it's me? When my insecurities kick in, I start making lame excuses, only to later find myself wrapped up in shit that I had spotted from the start. When people show themselves for who they are, when they reveal their true essence, we should never look at the other way. I was filled with doubts after Lorenzo left. Am I worthy of him staying? What did I do wrong? Was this the right decision? Did we give up too soon? But every time one of these questions entered my mind, his actions solidified my decisions. We were not right for each other. Our relationship had been broken for longer than we'd like to admit. So by the time we officially separated in September, my focus was on cycling through the pain that comes with love gone wrong, as gracefully as possible, and setting my sights on further. I needed the light at the end of the tunnel to help me pull through the darkness. Enter Mr. Temple. The first DM I received from him came in October 7. It was strictly business. For a long time, I've been approached by different people to do my own liquor. Whiskey, tequila, vodka, and I always said no. I figured my obligation to my mom's tequila had to come first for the sake of my siblings. And that's what I did for a while, until her tequila started to go down the road I didn't feel was the right one. I learned the hard way that in order to thrive in business, I couldn't make emotional-based decisions. I couldn't continue to promote something I didn't believe in just for my own mom and siblings. No matter the product, if something isn't done right, then I have to rethink my role. I felt the quality of my mom's tequila was declining, and the marketing wasn't up to par. I had suggestions and solutions that were falling on deaf ears. That's when I started to draw the line. Fix the problem or don't count me in for promotion. I was at this tequila crossroads when Mr. Tempo approached me with a business proposal that caught my attention. We met at the opening of his new restaurant, exchanged numbers, and set up our first business meeting. I really admire your hustle, he told me. I've been watching you for a long time, and I think you have great engagement. I would love to help you come out with your own tequila. Actually, I already have one. I'd love for you to be the image of it. He poured me a shot and I took a sip. It was my favorite type of tequila, Cristalino aged. Aged and filtered to remove the color it picks up from the barrel, and it turns it into a crystal clear wonder. And it tastes amazing. I also like the name he'd chosen, Reina del Sur, though it carried with it some controversy given that the alias of the infamous Mexican narca. But he assured me that he had the rights from the actual Reina del Sur and the go-ahead to make it happen. I was still a little hesitant about the implications of the name. Why didn't you ask Kate? I asked, since Kate del Castillo played La Reina del Sur on the TV series. Because she has her own tequila. He then added that he felt that I was the right fit. Let me think about it, I said. I needed time to figure this out, and I wanted to talk to my family before I agreed to any deal involving tequila. Then I added, as you know, my mom has her own tequila. If you can help me get my mom's tequila in its feet, then that could open the door for me to have my own. I asked for his honest opinion about it. As a tequilero and someone who has done a lot of research, I'm sorry, but it's not up to par. He said that the bottle wasn't convenient for bartenders because it was too heavy, and he gave me the excellent feedback on what he thought was missing and what needed to be changed. Funnily enough, a lot of what he said was what I already suggested to my family. I wanted to make women the target audience for my mom's tequila, put money behind it, change the name, get artists involved in the promotion, and release it in December with her picture on the bottle. And now I was talking to someone who had the same marketing vision as well as contacts at restaurants. I figured it could be a win-win for the both. Okay, then help me get there, I said enthusiastically. Sure, one thing at a time. As the days passed, we continued talking, and at this time, other possible business ventures, but we never signed a contract. We were just floating ideas around, good ones at that. Then things took an unexpected turn. He confessed that he liked me, and he had a crush on me for the past 5 years. There had been a lot of guys who started reaching out after I announced my separation from Lorenzo, even some of his acquaintances and friends. The attention was fun, and I welcomed the distraction. But with Mr. Tempo, there was also an undeniable chemistry. He was older, had kids, was divorced, and was a businessman. He said he would take care of me and whispered everything a woman would dream of hearing. I want everything with you. I've never felt this so quickly with someone. You're what I always wanted. I want to take care of you. We can build things together. Imagine us traveling the world and opening restaurants. Now it's toast. I sincerely thought, oh my God, he checks off all the boxes I wanted in a man. Plus, I was starving for affection and intimacy. All I wanted was to be hugged and loved. My sex life while married reached a point where one night, about a week before we finally called it quits, when we were climbing into bed after a party, I was feeling turned on. And I made the moves on Lorenzo, only to be received by, I feel kind of full. No worries, grab my toy. You want me to grab it? Yes, I'm turned on and you're not doing anything about it. So he handed me my toy, and while I was there, by myself, playing, he was scrolling through his phone. In disbelief, I stopped and asked, are you going to help me? At least kiss me? Touch me? Something? I feel full. I recall that, he repeated. I never felt so undesired in my life. So when Mr. Tempo came into my life and showered me with compliments about my beauty and strength, he unknowingly fed my self-confidence and that admiration and desire that made me fall into his arms. I suddenly realized there was life beyond my heart-wrenching separation. He made me feel like a desirable woman again. So stopping myself right there and there to think things through, I ran with it and I let my guard down. The chemistry was out of this world and I was vulnerable and I needed that type of attention. I just wanted someone to make me feel loved. And that's what I'm guilty of. Lorenzo and I had legally split on September 16, so after that it was fair game. Whatever I did with my pussy from then on was my business. Was it wrong in the religious world because we were still married? Perhaps. But at the end of the day, I was no longer his problem, and he was no longer mine. He didn't even have my number. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I never cheated on him. What I do regret is allowing myself to fall so quickly for someone new. And as a public figure, I should have been more cautious. As a woman, I should have known I needed time to heal. When the cameras caught us kissing, I was absolutely devastated. My heart couldn't take another media debacle. I was later told it was a setup, but that Mr. Tempo had nothing to do with it. With time, I had a feeling that maybe his publicist hired someone to take pictures of us without his knowledge. Whoever was behind this sold the pictures to the gossip shows, suelta la sopa, which means they made money, and made the publicist look good in the eyes of his client. Mr. Tempo was sick to his stomach when he got wind about the leak. He was in the middle of doing interviews about his tequila, so I gave him the green light to address it in public. He defended me, but the outside optics didn't do us any favors. Everything happened so fast. I chose to trust him, but I didn't know if I could trust the people around him. Then I found out that he was with someone at the time. Of course, he didn't tell me about that. He later explained that he had a girlfriend, but it was rocky. What the fuck? So I suggested we put not only our fling on hold, but also our business talk. I needed to get divorced and get my head in order. However, by the end of October, I was la puta of the story. Since I'm a woman, having a little fun after my separation was still frowned upon. The attacks were relentless. The media latched on to the marriage certificate like we were living in the 1920s. I'm sorry, but we're in 2020. What did they expect? So I was supposed to wait around for the paper that legalized my separation while he did whatever the fuck he wanted? I have two words for them. Double standards. If I had been a man, this scandal would have been handled differently. Men are never called whores for having an affair. They're reprimanded, and then everyone moves on. I was furious that this had become a scandal. I was furious at the media's reaction, and I was furious at Lorenzo for using it as an opportunity to play the victim in the public eye and act like he was the innocent party in all of this. I never cheated on you, and you know that, I said to Lorenzo as this unfolded. And not because I was so in love with you. It's because I'm in love with God, and I'm too afraid to disappoint him. Now it's fair game. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. And so can I. Then I had to deal with my family. My plan had been to talk to them first before making any decisions regarding the tequila venture, and signing in with the dotted line. But when that kiss was leaked to the media and Mr. Tempo put me out there by talking about our idea of partnering for a tequila, that was a game changer. I was really upset with him, but I don't think he knew better. My mom's fans started saying, Oh my God, her mom has a tequila. How could she do this to her? Yeah, so do a bunch of other celebrities. There can be more than one celebrity tequila on the market. Still, they call me a bad daughter, and my family was really upset. I reached out to address what was being said in the media, to explain that yes, I was in a conversation about a possible tequila partnership, but nothing had been set in stone. I suggested we have a meeting so I could tell them where everything stood. Rosie was very bothered by the situation, and I got it. This is not how I wanted to handle this delicate issue. They immediately viewed the possible venture as a threat and took serious offense that I hadn't looped them in. I tried to explain that my idea was to help my mom's tequila too, but once my family gets offended, it's hard to get through to them. They latched onto the conflict of interest phrase. And I still stand by my thinking. There's no problem with my mom and me having tequilas out there at the same time. The proof is in our makeup lines. I have one, my mom has one, my sister Janica was thinking about having one, and we were all coexisting in the market just fine. Each of us in our own following, our own audience, and our own customer base. It hasn't affected our bottom lines, and I felt that my aunt and uncle were too stuck in their ways to see the bigger picture. I was also sick of them playing the mom card. I know my mama better than anyone else, especially when it comes to business. She and I worked side by side, and we created an empire together. I know what she would have liked, her take on quality. I know what she would have expected because I helped her build the foundation of what would become her legacy. That's why I also knew her original plan for her tequila. We're going to start this tequila and make it so good and make it so much noise that Patron is going to come and buy us out. That's what she said to me when we were first planning this venture. To grow it exponentially and to sell it off. That was the goal. It's what my mom wanted. In order to do that now, some major changes had to happen. But I felt that my uncle and aunt completely disregarded my ideas. It was a delicate situation. I wanted to handle it with care. But after that constant rejection and that Mr. Tempo madness, I realized we'd never see eye to eye on this, so I decided to step away. As a businesswoman who graduated from the University of Rivera, I've done so much and worked so hard to get where I am today, on my own, and that I can afford the luxury of associating my brand name to merchandise that isn't up to par with my standards. Period. My mama has been gone for 9 years. It's not her business anymore, it's theirs. And I don't have any obligation to be a good daughter to them. I finally matured enough to understand that I no longer need to bend over backwards for their approval. At the end of the day, what's on the line is my image and integrity, not theirs. My followers trust me, and I will not risk losing that hard-earned relationship. If I promote something that isn't up to par with my standards and my followers realize this, they will draw me like a bad habit. That's the way this business works. It's cutthroat. 1 minute you have a huge customer base, and the next they're gone. Then what? It was a hot mess, and at the time came for a cold shower. I realized that Mr. Tempo and I should have focused on our business ideas and not mixed it with pleasure. I still believe they would have been very lucrative. Although he and I had distanced ourselves from obvious reasons, I remain in touch with his business partner because I respect their entrepreneurial sense. There is no contract. At the moment, I'm just giving it time, but the door remains ajar. I will say, though, that the brief encounter with him woke me up from my heartbroken misery for a quick minute to show me that there are men out there who have their shit together. They do exist. I didn't have to rush anything. My time would come. And to simply remain connected, diligent, and intentional so that I could really start the healing process and emerge as the best version of myself. I would survive and once again start to thrive. But there were still a few deep potholes in the road ahead. Part of the downfall I suffered in the second half of 2020 wasn't just the end of my marriage. It also had to do with my family. I felt like it was 2012 all over again. It's no secret that I have a complicated relationship with some of my relatives. First and foremost, I love them. But sometimes I don't like them. Things got tense with my Tío Juan and Tía Rosie when the tequila scandal broke. Meanwhile, my Uncle Pete, the pastor of the family, decided to criticize my handling of my relationship in interviews without even reaching out to me first to find out what was really going on. Then my sister Jackie suddenly shut me out, even though she promised she'd never turn her back on me again after 2012. I felt so hurt and alone, like everything was all coming down on me at once. Did we not learn anything for the past 8 years? No. Rather than uniting after my mother's passing, things slowly went downhill from there. I got a lot of pushback when I first began my singing career. Sure, my family went on to my first concert, but I always felt very judged, especially by Rosie and Juan. As my career grew, instead of being happy for me and supporting my dreams, I was met with their indifference. It seemed like they suddenly saw me as the enemy, as the competition. It was insane. I wasn't out to take her place. I just wanted to follow a plan I had actually first discussed with my mama herself about launching my music career. It was time to carve down my own path, but some of my family wasn't having it. I remember my tío Juan made me feel terrible. Just recently, he launched a new singer on his record label and posted a story saying, "Yes, I like how she sings better than my niece, yes." Was that even necessary? From the beginning, they really disappointed me. But no matter what everyone said, I knew that my mama supported this dream, and I was determined to see it through. I love my tío Juan. He had such an important figure in my life, and I will forever be grateful for him, because he was the only one in my family who stood by me when my mom stopped talking to me and disinherited me in the fall of 2012. He believed me, and I will never forget that. But by taking my side, his relationship with my mom suffered. And when she passed away, they weren't in good terms because of it. I think deep down he resents me for that. Even though he probably wasn't aware of it, I believe that he played a major role in the decline of our relationship. I saw this clearly for the first time in 2014 during a signing he and I were doing in Chicago for my mom's tequila. I had just flown in exhausted from the nonstop work, and when I met up with him, I realized he was drunk. He started talking shit, and I was just trying to go with the flow, until he said something insulting about Janica, and I reacted without thinking, and replied with a comment about his daughter, which sent him into a rage. Suddenly he threw his phone and charger at me with such force that I had to quickly duck, and it hit the wall behind me and it made a hole. That's when I realized how much pent-up anger he had towards me. It was sobering. The last thing I wanted to do was to go signing after our fight, but I felt it was my responsibility. I had to go do it for my mama, so I stood there, hugged her fans, and put on my best happy face. "I don't know how you can be so fake and just smile and pretend everything's okay," he said to me. How could I not? Those people who had been waiting in line for hours don't have to bear the brunt of our dysfunctional family. It wasn't their fault. I wasn't going to ruin their moment because we couldn't stand each other. He reeked of alcohol and was livid, but I just ignored him the entire time. A couple of days later, the phone rang at 6 in the morning. Angel picked up. It was Juan, and he was drunk. "Why is it that God blessed this little girl with so much love?" he said to him, referring to me. Angel passed the phone to me, and Juan continued. "I came to realize that God blessed you with the grace and favor, and your mom is sending you her love through these people. But honestly, when your mom passed, I thought it would be my time. And here you come without even half my talent, and everyone loves you and everybody wants to work with you, while I've been at this for 15 years. You're not even prepared. It's so disappointing." They say only drunks and children tell the truth. Something clicked that week, and my relationship with my uncle has never been quite the same since. Navigating our family dynamic almost feels like walking through a minefield. Just when you think you've narrowly escaped losing a leg, you lose an arm instead. Coming out victorious is practically impossible. That's what I learned when I refused to go on the Dinastía Rivera tour 2018. "No, absolutely not. You guys hate each other," I said. I couldn't get on stage with them and pretend we were one big happy family, when some of them weren't even talking to each other. I don't care about how much money I stood to lose by saying no. My integrity came first. Selling out was not an option in my book. After my mom passed away, there were things that went down in Monterrey, Mexico, that a lot of us don't know about. When my tío Gus, who's always been the black sheep of the family, and my tío Lupe, who has also had a complicated relationship with all of us, came back from their trip, they kept their cool until my mama was buried. Then when the issues between them started igniting, some shit went down, and my tío Lupe and his ex-wife went to my tío Gus's house, and she and my cousin Karina had an altercation. Karina ended up breaking Lupe's ex-wife's nose. It was horrible. So when I asked to join the Dinastía Rivera for a performance, it didn't sit right with me. I approached Gus and said, "Okay, now that you're going to go on the tour, are you and Lupe going to talk? Are you two going to resolve your issues?" "No, I'm never going to talk to him again," he replied. "Well, I don't agree with that. I'm not getting on stage with you guys and pretend like we're this big happy family for the camera. And all this shit. You guys go ahead and do it without me. I wasn't part of the dinastía anyways, so I didn't think it was a big deal. But then I fucked up. After some insistence from my Tío Juan and Tía Rosie, I agreed to go on stage and sing at the Jenny Vive concert on October 31st, 2018. That meant that I would be singing with my Tío Lupe, who I hadn't spoken to in 4 years. It wasn't like we couldn't be in the same room with each other. If we crossed paths, we were always cordial. Plus, he was showing signs of change and was trying to reach out and get closer to the family. In any case, I wasn't opposed to singing with him. It just felt unnatural. But in this instance, I preferred to go with the flow so as not to cause even more problems in our family. I wanted to please my Tío Juan and Tía Rosie. I wanted there to be peace. I wanted our family to be okay. And most important, I wanted to do it for my mama. Right before I took the stage that evening, Lupe spoke to the audience and expressed that he was proud to introduce someone who he loved as a daughter since she was a little girl. He went on to say that he was the happiest uncle in the world. He never said any of that to me before, on or off camera. I was so confused. I didn't know how to feel. Rattled, I took the stage and made it through the performance, gaining momentum with each passing song. What I didn't realize then was that by appearing on stage with him, I would lose my cousin Corina, Gus's daughter, in the process. I had remained loyal to both Gus and Corina throughout their feud with my Tío Lupe, but in her eyes, I became a sellout. When I agreed to sign with him that night, I understand where she's coming from. I didn't do it for him. I did it for my mama. I did it to honor her. But that, together with further miscommunication and misunderstandings regarding other things that people told her about me that weren't entirely true, ultimately caused my relationship with Corina. She was my closest cousin, and I wish I could have had a chance to talk to her and tell her my side of the story. I never thought I'd get married without her there. We've managed to exchange a few text messages in the past years, but we're far from being as close as we used to be. I love to tell her, "Fuck, you were right. This whole time you were right. My family's fucked up. They're all fake." I grew up with the motto, "Blood is thicker than water," and I believed it. But as I got older, I realized that this was bullshit. People are people, and family can have your back, and they can stab you in the back. It has nothing to do with blood. When Jackie started talking to her dad again, as I mentioned earlier, it made me feel uncomfortable. I've always been there for her. I helped her raise her too, and she knew what that man had put me through. But then I talked myself out of those feelings. I can't be selfish, I tell myself. I know how much not having a dad affected her. I figured that maybe even something resembling a relationship with him could give her the answers to the questions that have been hung over her head for most of her life. Maybe it could help her mend her heart. So I pushed my feelings aside, and I listened to her when she said she only have a relationship with him if he apologized for what he did. Then I watched as she continued to communicate with him, even though that specific apology never came. And suddenly, I had a familiar thought again. She doesn't have my back. When my mom accused me of sleeping with her husband and disinherited me in the fall of 2012, Jackie shut me out without even giving me the benefit of doubt. I pleaded with her, "Jackie, you know me. You know who I am. I would never do something like that." But she chose a side, and it wasn't mine. She never called to see how I was doing, and I felt she abandoned me. Then Mama died, and I made a promise to her, as the eldest, to keep my siblings together, and eventually we grew close again. This led to our heart-to-heart talk in 2016, when a few days before having her third child, she said to me, "I was really mean and I hurt your heart. I should have known better. I should have brought peace to the situation." She said she knew that she should have stood up for me and told Mama that she was wrong, but she didn't. However, I learned to trust her again. I understood that she was trying to be a good daughter. "I promise I won't let anyone talk bad about you now. I know I messed up, and I know I didn't stand up for you. But now, learning from my mistakes, I will never do that again." But she did. After going through so many ups and downs with her, after experiencing her taking someone else's side in the family one too many times, I now realized I should have spoken up and let her know how her newfound relationship with our dad really made me feel. I should have said, "Sister, Dad hurt me. It affected me in many ways. If you still want to have a relationship with him, you have to know and to take into consideration how it makes me feel too. Or, no, Jackie, I'm not comfortable with you being close to our dad. I think it's showing him that if he can have you in his life, that he can surely make everyone else believe that he didn't hurt me, that it wasn't true. I should have, but I couldn't. I put her needs first. Then 2020 came along and it happened again, and that time I had had enough. I was swimming through this shit, trying to pick up the pieces of my broken marriage, dealing with Mr. Temple's scandal, and I desperately needed my sisters by my side. But she wasn't there. Instead, she stood by my aunt and uncle and left me out to dry. Maybe it was because she was too easily manipulative. I will never quite understand what drives her to do this, but this time I had reached my limit. I told her I needed space from her, and she said that she felt the same way. That she was tired of being stuck in the middle, always having to choose between our uncle and aunt and me. Sometimes she makes me feel like she chose them over me. Time again, even after she apologized in tears, promising that she'd come to my defense the next time. It hurts, and I'll never understand why. I feel like she takes me for granted sometimes. She and I are okay now. We're cordial, respectful, and we know we love each other, but we're not as close as I like. Through therapy, I've come to realize that she's my sister, that she doesn't necessarily make her my best friend. Jenica and I are friends. We talk about everything and anything, but with Jackie it's different. She doesn't come to me for deep conversations anymore. Sometimes I feel like she's closer to Rosie, and as much as I would love to have that inseparable sisterly bond with Jackie, I've learned to respect and accept that I don't, and that's okay. I will always love her regardless. Now I'm focused on learning how to create boundaries and take care of myself, especially in this family, where jealousy thrives. I experienced it first through my mom. I saw that she had to deal with, and I witnessed her tears. The year before she passed away, I remember how disappointed she was with her family when she got her knee surgery. She said, "All I am to my family is money." No one came to check on her to see if she was okay. It was December 2011, a year before she left us for good, and I remember her saying that she wanted to give them money so that they would just leave her alone. It was toxic for her too. When Lupe was on top, they were against her. When she was on top, they cozied up to her and turned their backs on him. I've seen it. I remember it all. And now it's my turn, and it's exhausting. But I'm doing my own thing, and I'm staying in my lane. I no longer feel the need to prove myself to them so that they can be happy with me, love me, and recognize that I'm a good person with good intentions. That has gotten me nowhere in the past. They've always been upset with me for not supporting more of my mom's stuff, and when I try to stand my ground, they go for my jugular. You're a bad daughter because you don't support your mom's legacy. Wait, I supported my mom, and I gave her the first 26 years of my life. While it seemed to me they fed off her winnings, I was taking care of my siblings. I helped my mom build her career, everything. And because of that, I know that her biggest legacy isn't her songs or her tequila or her makeup line. Her biggest legacy are her children. No one can tell me I owe her anything anymore. I'm good with my mother. I'm at peace with her. I'm looking out for her kids, making sure all 4 of them are okay. Even when things are rocky with us, I still have their backs and keep them in my prayers. So when they say all you care about is money to add fuel to the fire, I think, no. All I care is about earning and living and making sure my younger siblings are taken care of. That's what my mama would have wanted. Despite this, I gave them suggestions on how to handle my mom's business, but they didn't want to hear it. In truth, it hasn't been my mama's business for a long time. Rosie and Juan have been the helm of that ship for the past 9 years. They're the ones behind the brand now, not my mom, and I don't agree with a lot of how they do things. At this point, I wish we could just put all the business nonsense aside and become a family again. I don't want them to turn to me for work and then shun me when I think something should be done differently. I'm sick of it. Wait, Tia, did you ask me if I ate today? Did you ask me how I'm doing? Did you care about the pain I was going through with my separation and divorce? Were you there for me? No. No, you weren't. I was crying myself to sleep in November, and just like in 2012, none of them were around. Some things just never change. One of those days, when I was in the bathroom weeping and alone, I heard my mama clearly. "Why are you surprised about our family? I went through this already. This has been going on for years." She's right. I shouldn't have been surprised. But I also think her decision to put Rosie in charge of the estate exacerbated everything. I understand the reasoning. Rosie's frugal and has done a great job managing her own money. What my mom didn't consider is the pressure Rosie would have to endure when taking over a business she really knew nothing about, and how this appointment would damage her family in the long run. I don't think my mama was in the right frame of mind to be making this type of big decision. It should have been assigned to someone neutral, a professional, a business-savvy estate manager that would have freed up the rest of us to simply be a family. But what's done is done. My mom's empire has the potential to be incredibly lucrative, but I believe the decisions being made are emotionally rooted and lack of logical business sense, and I believe it's slowly becoming a sinking ship. It doesn't affect me personally, because my mom took me out of her will before she died, so I'm not part of that trust. But it does worry me. It's my siblings' inheritance we're talking about, and I'm afraid that there won't be much left by the time Johnny and Janica finally turn 25, which is when they can access the first portions of their shares. The second one comes when they're 30, and the third one when they reach 35. That means Johnny still has 15 more years to go before he can access his entire inheritance. So when I hear Rosie say, "Oh, he doesn't have a lot of money left," it gives me a pause. She likes to blame it on me that it's all going to cover his expenses. Hold up. I get $2,800 a month for Johnny's food, rent, clothes, and any other essentials. I take care of anything else he may need. That's really not much nowadays. So when they say I'm spending all of his money, I ask, how? This ongoing situation has driven Johnny to pursue an accounting of the estate. It's actually something that he's been wanting to do since he was 16. Back then, as his guardian, I stopped him, because I didn't think it was a good idea to upset the family. He then revisited the idea with me when he turned 18, and I said no. Now that he's turned 21, he brought it up again, and I asked to sit on it and pray. And he resolute with his decision. "Okay," I replied. "I'll help you with this. I support you 100%. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. Just know that they're not going to be happy about it." And accounting is completely normal. It should have been happening annually. Up until now, I didn't really feel like I had a say because I was shut out of the will. But I finally shook that off this year. I'm still her daughter. I helped her build this empire, and I had the right to help Johnny get some answers to the questions that it's been bothering him during these last 4 years. The kids currently don't know how much money is in that account or what comes in and out. They don't know Juan and Rosie's salary, and they don't know what Rosie's husband gets paid. They're completely in the dark. I've asked my siblings, how the hell is it that you don't have access to the account information? They should be able to see what's going on. After all, it's their inheritance, their money. The purpose of the accounting is to see what's happening with the money that my mom left for my siblings. The goal is to make it all transparent. Obviously, it's ruffling my family's feathers. But if there's nothing to hide, then there shouldn't be a problem. At the end of the day, despite our dysfunctional relationships, I love Rosie and I love Juan, and I love my extended family. But sometimes I don't feel they're healthy for me. Will they have my backs? No. Blood is thicker than water? My ass. What they forget is that my mama set me on this independent road before she passed away. She pushed me to go live alone, to find myself, to discover my path and my passion. She wanted to manage my singing career. She wanted me to fly and do my thing. And that's what I'm finally doing. Even though my family doesn't like it, some of our business may overlap, but I'm not jeopardizing their income. Do you think I feel threatened by Janica or Jackie coming out with their own makeup or skincare line? Hell no! I'm fucking proud of them. I know they're going to do amazing things, and I hope to support them in any way I can. Because unlike some of my family, I believe in celebrating one another's success, rather than getting upset because one of us is doing better than the other. There's room for all of us to pursue our dreams and shine. I've also finally understood that loving them and wishing them well doesn't mean that they have to be close to me. Since I was young, I've had issues with boundaries. It all started with my dad. Once I began to understand what he was doing to me was wrong, why didn't I just say no? I've asked myself this question a lot. In retrospect, I think I might have uttered it once to no avail, but I didn't want him to get mad at me. I didn't want to disappoint him. I didn't know what to feel or how to speak about it, and I carried that response pattern into my adulthood. When I've had issues with my uncles or my sisters or any other relative or friend, even if it's as crystal clear as that they were wrong, I doubted myself and I didn't speak up. I thought that they were pushing my feelings aside. I was protecting them. They came first, even if I felt hurt, even if they were in the wrong. It happened with my mom too. I grew up putting her first, helping her shine through the University of Jenny Rivera rather than the real university, because I felt that it was my job to be there by her side, to help her with the kids, with her business, and it's what I knew. Anytime I enter into conflict with the people I loved, I tend to put my feelings on the back burner, and I want to figure this shit out because I know it's not healthy. I've just been doing it for so long, and it's a hard habit to break. I have to find my voice and the strength to say, no, that doesn't make me comfortable. I don't want to have a toxic relationship. Not with my relatives, not with my partners, not with my friends. It doesn't do us any good in the end. On the flip side, I know that expectations that we put on our loved ones versus the reality of what they can give us in return sometimes differs enormously. And that road can lead to a disappointment. I'm learning to be okay with that so that I can enjoy what we are able to give each other. There's a sense of peace that comes with finally accepting this and no longer forcing unrealistic expectations on my family. At the end of the day, I want to be surrounded by people who do me good, who ultimately give me peace. I want people in my life who will reciprocate my love and be in it in a relationship with my family or with friends, rather than the takers who deplete me. I want people who complete me. I yearn for a loving family, one where there's no shared business involved, one where we can just be siblings, aunts, and uncles and cousins and nephews, and nieces and grandparents, without all the extra drama that does all of us so much harm. I still hold hope that my family will one day turn a corner. La esperanza es lo último que se pierde. On September 29, 2020, fresh off my separation, one of my dreams came true. I was nominated for a Latin Grammy. It was like God and my mama were saying, hang in there. The good will outbalance the bad. I had been visualizing this moment for years and was overcome with emotions when I heard the news. While recording playlist, I could feel it had a special energy, and I remember saying to myself, I want a Grammy. I manifested it, but I couldn't have gone there without my team and the artists who said yes and were part of my musical journey. My confidence as a woman, as a singer, and as an artist were on the rise, and I found my groove. I knew what I wanted. 10 songs in a certain order, mastered to perfection, so that they could be seamlessly streamed on any device. I'd follow my mama's advice. When one door shuts, go through the window. And it worked. The perseverance was paying off. As the weeks went by, this nomination became my beacon of hope, pulling me through the roller coaster that was October, the estrangement with my family, my separation, and the quietly devastating days of November. The day before the big event, I was bursting with mixed emotions. I missed my mama. I couldn't help but notice the parallels between what I was going through and my mama's experience in 2012. She was also amid divorce proceedings, estranged from some of her family, and even had a knee issue like I did at that time. My mom had won an award for Premios de la Radio that year for Best Female Artist of the Year, and now was nominated for a Latin Grammy. Just thinking about all this gives me goosebumps. I still wish that she could have been there with me, but I know that she was proud. My mama always pushed me to learn from my experiences so that I could do things differently and better than her when my time came. So once she was gone, when faced with my dilemma or crossroads, I always asked myself, what would Jenny do? I know the impulsive route isn't the best choice, but I made it a habit to sit on things and pray about them. I miss my husband. When he was nominated a couple of years earlier, La Banda Original El Limón, I went with him to the ceremony, and I remember sitting there and thinking, I'm going to be nominated. I manifested it that night. Then while recording playlist, Lorenzo was a wonderful guide in the studio, giving me tips on how to improve my vocal tracks. I would have loved to have him by my side to help me celebrate this accomplishment, but God had other plans. Everything happens for a reason, and that's what I keep telling myself. But I was also so excited. Just being recognized is a dream come true. I made it a point to spend alone time to spiritually align myself. I meditated in the morning, and instead of working out, I rested. I had lunch with Johnny, then I got a massage. I decided to only do what filled my heart with joy and peace. Then, a crazy sense of calm washed over me during my fitting. Usually, choosing what I'm going to wear for such a big moment makes me nervous. But this time around, I felt everything was going to be okay. No matter what happened, I knew that at the end of the day, simply being recognized by the Academy was such an honor. On November 19, 2020, I set my alarm for 5 in the morning, but when I opened my eyes and looked at the clock on my cable box, It said 4:44 a.m. This had to mean something. So I googled it and found that it was connected to an angel message that signifies divine connection, as in, you're on the right path. I smiled. It was a good omen. I tapped on one of my meditation apps and meditated for a little while. Then I got out of bed and kneeled down beside it with my angel devotional book in hand and began to pray. Then I started speaking directly to my mom, which I hadn't done in a long time. Mama, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you. I know you're busy in heaven. That's how I imagine her, busy up there. But you know that I love you. Everything I do is for you. I'm just asking you to help me. You're closer to God. Suddenly I felt a twinge in my chest and heard her voice within me say, You got this, baby. It's yours. Tears started to stream down my face because it felt so real. But I shook the thought from my mind. I didn't want to believe it was a done deal because I wanted to avoid suffering the disappointment if it wasn't. I reminded myself that whatever happened would be fine. Just having the honor of being nominated was a huge accomplishment. Around 5:30 a.m., I started writing my thank you speech in my notes app and thought, God, if I win this, I'm going to exalt your name among everyone because I know you're the reason I got to this point, because of your grace and favor, because you've given me the strength. I promise I will say all glory to you. I usually don't like to wake up and read my emails, but that morning I opened my inbox and found one from Lorenzo, which he had sent that night before. It had 2 videos of us from 2016 and 2017, at the height of our relationship, and a message that said that he didn't know how he was going to live without me. I watched both videos twice, but I couldn't get into it with him that day, so I didn't respond. Then I changed into my workout clothes, went downstairs, and I rode in my stationary bike for 45 minutes while listening to worship music. I was chugging along just fine until the song Oceans by Hillsong United started to play. Suddenly, I felt God was speaking to me through the lyrics, as if saying, You've been through so much, especially in the past few months. I'm going to show you that I'm with you, that you're on the right path. That's what I felt in the center of my chest, and I started bawling. I could hear his voice. I know you're hurting, but this time I'm going to exalt you among those who didn't believe in you and said that you couldn't do it. I'm going to show my power through you. I took a deep breath, and with tears still streaming down my face, I whispered, I'm going to take it. I'm bringing that Grammy home. I felt raw, fresh, and at peace. I prepped for the momentous day. Since we were still in the middle of the pandemic, the classic red carpet ceremony and after parties had all been canceled. But that wasn't going to stop me from commemorating this special moment. I wanted to celebrate not just being nominated, but also everyone who had fought for me, had been there for me, had stood by my side and helped me endure the tsunami of criticism and adversity, and everyone who believed in me and put their heart and soul into this album. My party planner went all out. We had a mini red carpet and everything in my home reflected an award show, down to my own Grammy Awards that said Chiquis on them. I loved it. It was the next best thing to attending to the live event. As we poured into the room, everything was absolutely perfect. Bursting with excitement, I stood behind the gold podium, waiting for a category to come on the big screen, and took a moment to glance down in silence to prepare for whatever came next. When I heard Mejor Álbum de Banda and the list of nominees, my heart started racing, and I closed my eyes and thought, This is ours. This is ours. Get ready. Get your speech ready. Then I heard it. Playlist. My guest exploded in cheers, screaming and clapping, and I felt my heart skip a beat. I quickly composed myself from the initial shock and calmed my wonderful circle down so that I could give my thank you speech. I was so awestruck that I forgot to look at my notes, but I didn't need them. I just spoke from my heart, and I started by thanking God first for giving me the courage I needed to persevere. And then I went on to thank my team, my fans, and everyone, because we all won that day. I've never felt such rush before. We were the list underdogs, and we made it to the top. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the toxic voices to come out in full force, saying that I had bought the win. Juan called to congratulate me, but my tia Rosie said some very hurtful things regarding my win, and it not only affected my relationship with her, but it also cost her relationship with Johnny and Jenica. It was such a surreal few days. Despite feeling hurt by this new wave of bullshit, I was still on cloud nine. Meanwhile, Lorenzo had sent me 2 more emails that day, one of encouragement before the announcement, and another one congratulating me and my team. I missed them so much, but I remained quiet. I didn't know what to say, and I needed to protect my heart. The pain was there, latent, but the last thing I wanted to do was to give it a starting role in this particular unique and wonderful moment in my life. One meaningful surprise came from my Tío Lupe. While a lot of my family didn't reach out to congratulate me or post anything on their social media, the person I least expected called me right away and then posted a congratulatory YouTube video. While chatting with Lupe, he said, "I know what it feels like not to get a call from anyone." He didn't refer to our family directly, but I could read between the lines. We hadn't been close in a long time, but that moment meant so much to me. I was so grateful. That day, after a 5-hour text war among relatives, I decided to exit the family group chat. I was finally beginning to create some much-needed boundaries, yet I felt so alone. I asked God for forgiveness because I didn't want to be ungrateful. My siblings were with me. My grandma and a handful of relatives supported me, as well as my friends. People who didn't even know me seemed genuinely happy for me. Despite the sadness, I knew I was truly blessed to be surrounded by so many people who were genuinely rooting for me. That gives me life. It inspires me to do better, to be better. I'm very competitive with myself, and these moments don't just feed my sense of accomplishment. They light a fire that pushes me to set to a higher bar in every aspect of my life. I strive for every album to be better than the last, for every red carpet look to outdo the previous one. It's all about leveling up with myself, and I'm here as proof when you have faith and you work hard, dreams really do come true. It's about perseverance. It's about not giving up. It's about believing in yourself when no one else believes in you. Don't let anyone or anything stop you from manifesting your vision. The last days before Thanksgiving, I had on my Chiquis suit. I was so entrenched in work mode that I didn't even realize I was neglecting Janae, my essence. I was neglecting the side of me that was immersed in the pool of pain, trying to navigate through divorce, tension with my family, and an indestructible emptiness in the pit of my stomach. My neck hurts, my muscles hurt, everything within me was screaming, "You need to put yourself first." I was in the brink of falling apart, and I crossed an edge during my last day of recording Tengo Talento. Something snapped. As soon as I finished filming for the show that day in late November, I felt like I was hanging on by a thread. I didn't realize how hard I had been pushing through the past couple of months until I stepped off the stage and Don Cheto gave me a hug and said, "I know you're not okay, I feel it, but you're going to be fine. You've been through worse." His words pierced through my soul. I will never forget that moment, that hug, one that I hadn't received in a long while. I walked off the set in tears and suddenly realized, okay, you need time to yourself. You need to heal. The producers asked if I would do some promos, but I could barely gather the strength to make it to my dressing room. When I walked in, I headed straight to the bathroom. I collapsed to my knees. I let the pent-up tears flow out of me. I didn't realize I had been holding all of that in for such a long time until then. When I got home that night, I took off my Chiquis suit. I felt so bare and vulnerable. Up until that day, I had no choice but to be strong, to chingona up, and smile through my sorrows because I had an obligations, responsibilities, and work. I had just released my single, Me Vale, and it definitely reflected part of what I was feeling. But I suddenly realized I desperately needed time to process the intensity of everything that had gone down in the last couple of months. I had been putting a band-aid on my open wounds, and now it was time to heal and recharge my batteries. I asked my friends Vanessa and Helen to come over, and after a 2-week alcohol cleanse, I got really drunk while we listened to music, and later cried myself to sleep. The following day was Thanksgiving, and I had planned to spend it with my grandma, but with all the issues with my family, I chose to stay home instead. I needed time to be alone. I didn't want to shower, dress up, and front that everything was fine because it wasn't. So instead, I stayed in bed and wore my PJs all day. Vanessa brought me food, and I just let myself be. I realized I was reaching rock bottom when a few unenlivening thoughts crossed my mind. This was no joke. I had to take care of myself. I visited my grandma on Friday and spent the following 2 days with her. and then I canceled all my commitments. I needed to take December off and really figure out what was going on with me. Something I wish my mom had been able to do back in 2012. Mama was feeling off the year she passed. She was on a self-destructive path, blinded by what others said instead of listening to her gut. From what I heard later from Vanessa and Rosie, she spent on days obsessively watching the infamous blurry video and filling in the gaps with her unstable mind. When you look at the same image incessantly, you can start seeing things that aren't really there. Like when you look up at the clouds and discern shapes and objects of animals, and discern shapes of objects or animals. The power of the mind is so great that if you really want to see something, you can. I think my mom was going through something and it was driving her to a very dark place. From what I heard, she had gone to the doctor to figure out why she felt so off, and they said that she had hormones of an 86-year-old woman. I think she had started taking supplements of some kind, according to what people who were close to her during those last months told me. I was also told that she was afraid to be alone, which wasn't like her at all. Maybe she sensed something was coming. I'll never know. But after putting all the pieces together, I do believe she was acting out of character. Now, I believe this instability may run in the family. I was talking to my grandma recently about this, trying to understand if there could be a chemical imbalance that we were inherited from our ancestors. My grandpa has some crazy-ass ideas about what happened in our family back in the day, what my grandma's family did to some of his relatives. I'm talking some horror movie shit. I've heard some stories about my grandpa's dad making his wife march naked down the street like a soldier. Sounds like my great-grandpa was probably mentally unstable. When I hear these family stories, I don't find them funny or colorful. I see a pattern of instability running through our bloodline that no one seems to be aware or take seriously. Now, after chatting with my grandma about all of this, I've come to think that maybe my mom was going through something far beyond the influence of toxic voices and a hormonal imbalance that began to overpower her logical state of mind. Unfortunately, I'll never know for sure. What I do know is that I went to a very dark place while we were estranged that fall. And once it was confirmed that her plane had crashed and she wasn't coming home, it got even darker for me. I locked myself in my grandma's bathroom and I thought, I don't know if I want to continue being here. As I stared into oblivion, suddenly I heard my mama's voice say, "You cannot give up. You need to be strong for your siblings." And I immediately snapped out of it. My goodness, what am I thinking? I took a deep breath, and before opening the bathroom door, I recalled something that she said. You can't take the easy way out. I'm so glad I didn't, because I'm here, alive, and able to share the story, and hopefully help other women pull through these all-consuming thoughts. I honestly didn't think depression was real until I experienced it in 2012, before living it in the flesh. I naively believed that we had a choice not to be depressed. But sometimes life is stronger than your will to choose. Sometimes it's not easy to leave the darkness behind. Some people will never make it out at all. I'm glad I went through what I did in 2012 because it helped me quickly recognize the profound sadness that was hitting me in 2020. My body ached, and as much as I wanted to move and work out, it was hard to even get myself out of bed. That's when I realized, oh my God, I'm depressed. Depression is a demon, and that's how I see it. An evil demon that wants to rob me out of my light, of my future. But I couldn't let it. I fought it off once in 2012, and I was determined to do it again in 2020. I prayed, I lit candles, and I read spiritually positive books. I went to therapy and slowly began to climb out of that dark hole. I made an intentional effort to get back on my feet. I realized that it was finally time for me to be alone with myself. My codependency, that need to feel needed, had me jumping from my mom to Angel to Lorenzo without ever giving myself the necessary space between relationships to be by myself. And when my relationships went south, my friends helped me fill that void. I almost fell into this pattern again in October with Mr. Tempo, and I thought he was everything I had asked God for in a man. But when the kiss was leaked, I had a sense to slam on the brakes. It was time to listen. It was time to pay attention to the red flags rather than ignore them. I had to start applying the lessons learned. I initially interpreted that moment with him as the universe sending me a sign that it was listening to me. But what it was really saying is that it was time for me to be alone. That space with ourselves is crucial. It can teach us what we like to and dislike, and it can make us aware of what we'll tolerate, compromise, and where we will draw the line. It allows us to sort through our crap so that we can have a better chance of not dragging our old baggage into the new chapters in our lives. I know now that by not giving myself time and space after my relationship with Angel, I definitely dragged some of my past issues into my budding romance with Lorenzo. And even though they were night and day, and that was not right or fair to him, I also know it's common. When we're in pain and feeling down in ourselves, it's easy to fall for someone else's arms because they offer the comfort we so desperately seek. We also can't think straight because we are what I call distracted. I had been distracted this entire fucking time, and I was done. I needed to stop and take stock. When I left my grandma after Thanksgiving, I drove back home, crawled into bed, and spent the next day in my feelings, crying it all out. I was profoundly sad, still in the thick of my pain, trying to figure out how to break free from this dark spiral and get back to me. Suddenly I felt an urgency to see Lorenzo. I needed to have a conversation with him face to face. Without telling anyone, I booked a red-eye flight to El Paso and took an Uber to the airport instead of driving there to avoid the media. I traveled with the clothes on my back. My plane landed at 9 in the morning, and I rented a car and drove straight to Lorenzo's mom's house. After parking outside, I grabbed my phone and emailed Lorenzo. "I'd like to speak to you," I wrote. "I'd like to speak to you as well," he replied. "Well, would you like to speak to me in person?" "Yes." "Okay, I'm outside." I then called him and broke down. My vulnerability was running on high. Maybe this gave him the impression that I was there to beg him to come back to me, but I wasn't there to beg. I was there to talk. If I had cheated, if I had been at fault, I would have been the first one to beg for his forgiveness and ask him to come home. But that wasn't the case. After I decided to take December off to heal, I realized I needed to close my cycles and detox myself from toxic patterns. And this relationship was one of them. I wanted one last heart-to-heart conversation. This is something I needed to do for myself, and I didn't want anyone to sway my resolve. I don't owe anyone an explanation either. That's why I didn't share my plan with anyone, and I mean no one. In fact, the following day, I texted Johnny to let him know I was okay, but I didn't disclose my location. That's how far I went to keep this trip private. When Lorenzo came out of his mom's house, we drove to a nearby park to talk. It was horrible. He was obsessed with my rendezvous with Mr. Tempo, but that was after we separated. It wasn't the cause of our impending divorce, but a consequence of it. I'll say it again and a million times over. No, I did not cheat. My mistake was falling into someone else's arms so soon after we separated. I take full responsibility for that. When I realized my misstep after the whole media debacle, I took action and stopped talking to Mr. Temple. It was clear I needed to spend time with myself before finding a new companion. I couldn't get lost in another relationship without doing the work on myself first. I was never unfaithful while with Lorenzo. I apologized because I never meant to hurt him, but I was also brutally honest with him. I needed to be loved. I wanted to be with someone. I wanted a companion, I said, and then added, "I'm sure you've been with women." "No, I haven't," he said, cutting me short. "Okay, I'm not asking you. I'm just saying it's human nature, and I'm okay with it. I'm not here to demand any type of explanation on that front. After September 16, I have no right to demand anything, and you don't either." For some reason, he was convinced that Mr. Tempo had paid for my birthday trip in Ensenada. I have no clue where he got this idea from, so I brought proof to right this wrong in his mind. I showed him how my friends and I all pitched in to pay for the rental, and I also showed him Mr. Tempo's first DM with the October 7 date stamp, which was not even close to June. I did all of this in person because the last thing I wanted was for him to say that it had been photoshopped. I needed to clear the air from the incessant and poisonous rumors swirling around our separation. His ego was hurt and he was lashing out. It seemed that he was angrier about what people thought about him than anything else. "So you're not here because you love me?" he asked. "Of course I'm here because I love you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to ever think I cheated on you. I didn't want him to live with that pain." "Okay, so you're doing this for yourself?" Nothing I said got through to him. Nothing I said was enough. "Come in peace," I said. "I'm not here to fight. I have no energy left to fight. I'm going through things with my family. This is something I need to do for myself and for you because we need closure." I had nothing to hide. I told him to ask me whatever he wanted. I was very honest, which he didn't like. But I vowed myself that whatever happened, I would remain transparent. He kept yelling at me, "I'm angry you hurt my manhood. You humiliated me." While he continued to point out everything I did to harm him, I just sat there and cried. I didn't want to fight. I was so tired. I came to him vulnerable. I told him I was going through a lot and that I was sad, heartbroken by our situation, by the deception that I suffer from so many people in my family. You see me on the floor, I said, and instead of picking me up, you're kicking me while I'm down. The conversation was going nowhere. I was ready to call it a day and go back home, but he didn't want me to leave. He was upset, at times furious, and yearning for his freedom, but he was also asking me to stay longer. I felt there was still stuff that we had to hash out, so I missed my flight. But when we picked up the conversation the next day, it was just as awkward and upsetting. What did you think was going to happen when you left? I said at one point. You told me you never abandoned me, and I felt abandoned. But you said you wanted to separate, he replied. But I did it for you, because you were expressing your need to be free. You felt confined. You said that you weren't independent, that my world had become your world, that you left your life behind in Texas. I felt like you were saying, I want to be here, but I don't. So I gave you the option to leave, and you took it without even thinking twice. He expressed that at the time he thought that we worked things out, and if he truly believed that, then why the hell did he drive all the way to Arizona the day he left our house? Why didn't he stay nearby? Was it that he was eager to be with someone else? This isn't a game. It's not a hotel that you can just check in and out whenever you want. It's a marriage. You shouldn't have left, especially to another state. We had to interrupt this conversation because he had a video shoot scheduled that day. Since you're here, can you help me with this video? You're so good at all this stuff. Wait, but I thought I didn't support your career, I replied annoyed. He kept publicly claiming that I never supported his career, and now he was asking me for help? The fuck? No. Look, I want to clear that up. They took my words out of context. Yeah, well, you let them use you. And in turn, they hung me out dry. That show really hurt me and hurt us. And you deliberately went there because you know they don't like me. I was talking about the same show that had revealed our wedding invitation to the world. Because when he gave them an interview after our separation, I felt it was a deliberate move on his part. I was so hurt and disappointed. I didn't expect such a low blow from him. But he said he now realized he messed up, and he vowed to clear it up. I was so physically and mentally drained that I couldn't argue anymore. So I just went with the flow and helped him with his wardrobe for the video. I needed to focus on something else for a bit. I needed to feel normal. We drove to the set and I gave him pointers on how to move. Then I stepped in and took over using my phone for lighting, directing the camera guy and even suggesting that his daughter ran into the closing frame of the end of the video. I was Chiquis mode and in my element, and for a brief moment I felt okay, and he was incredibly grateful. When we drove back to his mom's that night, he said, I'm not letting you leave. We need to speak to a counselor. This is where you belong. You belong next to me. He wanted us to stop talking about the past and enjoy the moment. He wanted to take me out to eat, and I let him. I canceled 2 more flights. On Saturday, he took me to get a massage because he knew I was in physical pain. My arms, fingers, neck, and back all hurt from the tension. After, we grabbed a bite to eat, and he said he wanted to get a pedicure. I did too, so we went to a random place that neither of us had been to before. I was off social media at the time and trying to keep the visit under wraps. He was still connected though, so as we sat and got what I felt was the longest pedicure of my life, he posted a picture of his feet. Nowhere did it say where he was or what we were together. However, the minute we walked out of the salon, we were met by Suelta la Sopa reporters who had been lying in wait, ready to pounce. I was so taken back and upset that I turned around and went back inside. Lorenzo followed me to the back of the salon. How did they know we were here, Lorenzo? My voice was scarily calm and assertive. I don't know. I just posted a picture of my feet. I'm assuming they went to every nail shop around my mom's house until they finally found us, he said innocently. Well, now you can't blame anyone on my side, because I didn't tell anyone where I am, I said, referring to the time that the paparazzi found us in San Diego. And he said that it was my people's fault. I haven't texted or talked to any of my friends. Look at my phone. I sat down and watched as he suddenly tightened his fist. Then I looked up at him standing beside me, and I had a clear view of his clenched jaw. I knew those cues all too well. He felt under attack. I wasn't accusing him of anything. I just wanted to know how those damn reporters found us at that unassuming nail shop we've never gone to before. And then he started yelling. This was the 3rd day with him, the 3rd day of entering this endless loop of discussions that were getting us nowhere. We eventually sped walk past the reporters, climbed into the car, and left. I remained quiet during the ride to his place. My mind was made up. I needed to get back home. This was not the closure I had hoped for, but at least I tried. That night, I received a text from my grandma. I know where you are, and I'm worried about you. Please come home. That man isn't good for you. You're going to suffer a lot, mija. That's what I actually needed in that moment. I clung into my grandma's message and bought my ticket home the next morning. Then I told Lorenzo I had to go, that my grandma needed me back home, especially since December is a tough month for all of us. He went from insisting that I belonged by his side, being all sweet and loving and doing all these things that I missed so much, to this aggressive, accusatory, cold guy who didn't even offer me a ride to the airport. I requested an Uber, he walked me to the door, and that was it. On the way back home, as I reflected those last 3 days, I understood that although I still loved this man and missed him, I no longer trusted him. Introspection didn't come easily for him. Instead of sitting down and accepting what each of us could have done better, he simply pointed the finger at me. Did he forget how his addiction had affected our relationship? No. When I brought that up, he blamed me. He said that the white lies, the disappearing acts, the not texting or calling me back, all those times I was worried sick, thinking something had happened, were all my fault because he was scared of losing me. While with me, he claimed that he felt disrespected, and that's what made him fall into a depression and drink. But I checked him right there and there. Dude, you've been drinking and doing drugs for 10 plus years. How is that my fault? The only way he would stop and listen to me was if I started cussing and yelling. I don't like the person you bring out of me, I said to him. I don't like how he pushed me to step out of my essence. And then I told him, we're toxic for each other. I wanted to be a positive source in his life. But clearly that was impossible if he felt that I was to blame for everything. That was it. I guess that was all the closure I was ever going to get. As depleted and defeated as I felt, that trip did help me. It reminded me of why this relationship had come to an end in the first place. Maybe that's what I needed to move on. To realize that I had made a mistake and that I was on the right track, and this was definitely not the man for me. He only confirmed this further. Later that day, he FaceTimed me after going to church while with some friends, completely drunk. Dude, really? What was the point of this call? That was the root of our issues. What was he thinking? By the time I arrived at LA, the media was a frenzy. They said that I had gone to beg his forgiveness. They started a rumor that I was pregnant, and they kept talking about how I'd been crying while I was there. Wait a minute. The only photos they caught of us when we were leaving the nail salon, and a group pic at his video shoot. I was not crying in either of those shots. So how did they know about my tears? I hadn't spoken to anyone on my side. How did they have those details? Strangely enough, every time the media caught me by surprise over the past few years, it was with Lorenzo. I've done crazier things with crazier people and managed to keep it private. He liked the attention. I didn't. I preferred the relationship I had with Angel, with no outsiders were involved in any of our ups and downs. Could Lorenzo have been the one leaking all this stuff all along? I'll never know for sure. But I wasn't the only one who suspected this. The thought was disturbing to say the least. If this was a guy I was just meeting now, I'd say to myself, bitch, run. And although it took me a few years, I finally did it. I went from LAX straight to my grandma's house for comfort. As I sat in her kitchen while she cooked up some food for me, we chatted, and she asked if the rumors were true, if I was pregnant. No, Grandma, of course I'm not. This was getting ugly. I'm angry at what's happening, she said, and then repeated what she texted me while I was away. Deep in my heart, I feel you're going to suffer a lot with him. Tears streamed down my face. When someone like my grandma, who's had my back and has been there for me since I was a little girl, says something like that, it's worth paying attention. And she was right. During those last few months of our separation, I felt like he was using the end of our marriage for publicity, for his benefit, painting the picture of the good guy, the hurt husband. But what was going on behind closed doors told a different story. Yet, I still wished the relationship would have worked out. I envisioned something different for myself at 35. I wanted a constant companion, not this tumultuous tug of war. I think in part that's why I couldn't stop crying during those 3 days with Lorenzo. And even when I got back, I was entering the acceptance stage. There was no turning back. My tears were now mourning for a relationship that had reached the end of the line. As if all of this wasn't enough. December 9, 2020 was suddenly here. 8 years since my mama passed. Every anniversary is so different, and I didn't quite know what to expect this time around, or how I react. The past few years, I had been focused on the pain caused by her absence and everything we went through together. But this year was different. I felt her presence guiding me along the way. I wasn't focused on how we left things, because I know she was right there with me. I started thinking about her in a new light, in a more mature way. The pain gave way to gratitude. It was like she was helping me by unlocking doors and opening my eyes so that I didn't make the same mistakes she did. Throughout the years, I've had to live without her. I believe she's helped carry me through my ups and downs. Now I feel that she was saying to me, "Look, daughter, because of what I put you through, here's this platform. I'm going to open the doors for you. I'm going to help you heal, and I'm helping you see things because starting next year, you're on your own." My circumstances had brought me to my knees, but that day I suddenly understood her more than ever before, and that gave me peace. I could hear her voice telling me that somehow it was all going to be okay. The darkness is always followed by the light. I will always be her daughter, but now I'm also Chiquis. I've proven that I can do this on my own, and that has earned me respect now. I feel like she's pushing me to finally spread my wings and to let go of the past and soar into the future knowing that I got this, and I will be okay. I wish I could say everything started looking up from then, but the rest of December sucked. One doesn't magically heal overnight. It takes time. I felt the overweight this entire year in my heart. So when I decided to interrupt my social media hiatus and upload one more post at the end of the year, I wanted to be as forthright and honest as possible. I felt that we needed to take a moment and acknowledge and reflect on the unprecedented year that was finally coming to an end. My manager team advised against this, but when they saw my resolve, they jumped in to help. We had talking points. My manager did his best to guide me through it and asked me not to be too vulnerable on camera. We filmed the clip 7 times, and I was about to post one of those takes when I thought, I can't do this. This doesn't feel right. Fuck this. I'm just going to be Janae. I set aside the talking points and sat in front of the camera one last time and spoke from my heart. First, I acknowledged what a rough year it had been for all of us, and then countered that by listing some of the great things that had happened, like the music I managed to release and that amazing Grammy win in November. And I went on to say, at the end of the day, I'm a human. I'm letting Chiquis rest right now, and for now I'm focused on Janae. I'm focusing on my heart, on my mind, and on my spirituality. I'm healing a lot of things that have happened. The pressure of being Chiquis sometimes makes me forget to allow myself to be human, to feel wounded, to take time to heal. To give you the best of me, I have to be well in my mind, my soul, and my heart. This has been a year of loss. One way or another, we've all lost something. So believe me, I understand you. Believe me, I'm with you. Leave the heaviness behind and move forward with your head held high. In order to do that, you need to face yourself. You need to be intentional and adamant about wanting to be a better person, about wanting to change. I know why I'm here. I know my purpose. But sometimes with so much chaos around us, we tend to forget and we tend to lose our way. Who am I? Where do I want to go? What is my purpose in life? What footprint do I want to leave on this earth? That's what I recommend you do. Write it all down, who and what you want to leave behind. What's good for you, what isn't. What will serve you higher good so you can lift your purpose on this earth. With that post, I realized I wasn't alone, and I received so many messages from followers and fellow artists, and my heart swelled with all the love. That sense of community is priceless. It filled me with a light and inspired me to do all my power to let go of the past and start a new year with less pain and more peace in my heart. Then on New Year's, I received a message from Lorenzo. He wanted to ring in the new year with me and do a year of sobriety together. Before midnight, I got on my knees and prayed. God, let me see what I need to see, because I'm so confused. I knew I shouldn't responded, but I was fighting between my mind, which knew best, and my heart, which couldn't help but hope that this might be the grand gesture, the turning point I had been waiting for all along. However, when the clock struck 12, he was nowhere to be found. Then my phone rang at 1 in the morning. It was Lorenzo. He was in Las Vegas, drunk. Thank you, God, for sending me this sign. Another nail in our relationship's coffin. How is it that I'm starting the new year like this? Frustrated, angry, exhausted. I'm in tears. I finally fell asleep at 2:30 a.m. The next day, he texted me asking me for forgiveness. He wanted to talk, to start the new year sober with me, like a blank slate, where we no longer spoke of the past. But the past is the reason I feel the way I feel, I explained. We couldn't magically erase it with the snap of our fingers without ever really dealing with it. I've been doing this for 4 years, a series of unanswered calls and texts followed by a drunk reply and a plea for forgiveness the following day. I can't do it anymore. I had asked for a sign and I got it. God was showing me his true colors once again, in full display. And now it was up to me to stand by my decision and no longer give in to him. This time, I didn't change my number. I wanted the message to come through so I could exercise my willpower and make not responding a conscious choice. A couple of days later, he showed up at my house and texted me, "Janae, can I invite you to breakfast?" He was taking a page out of my playbook, but it was a little too late. I ignored him. "Janae, I'm here just to see you," he wrote and then posted a photo of one of our favorite restaurants, which is down the street from my house. But I stood my ground. I didn't care. For the first time, I didn't let him back in after messing up. "No, I'm not going to see you. You're not good for my heart. Leave me alone. I'm trying to heal." I was so proud of myself for finally breaking the toxic pattern in our relationship. But I was so rattled that at the end, I blocked him. I needed that peace of mind. When he realized this, he reverted back to emails and sent me our very first picture together. "What do you want from me? You were living your best life only a few weeks ago. And now that I'm finally feeling better, you want to come back? No, no me vas a tumbar. You're not taking me down." "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you," he replied. More apologies. I couldn't handle them anymore. It was the classic addiction behavior. The binges, the apologies. I was done with the manipulation. It was obvious he wasn't willing to genuinely break off that cycle and deal with his issues. And no one could do it for him. And I wasn't going down with him. Meanwhile, after a month off, I had to start thinking about work again. I had to continue living my life, and I gave myself those weeks to go deep, and now it was time to dust myself off and keep going. I set out to organize and clean my house, revamp the interior, and make the space of my own. That's when the image of Tulum, Mexico popped into my phone. It spoke directly into my chill and relaxed essence. And I decided I wanted a New Year redo. I needed to start 2021 right. Before I wrapped up my work and life, I texted my friend Rose and said, "Hey, let's go to Tulum." I wanted to stay in a hotel. I wanted my bed to be made. I wanted to be spoiled. I wanted to be with people that I loved and who loved me back. I visualized this trip as a reset button and a way to reconnect with the energy I required in my life. A handful of friends who were single and also needed a getaway joined us, and off we went. With the passing days, the sadness that I've been carrying in my heart for months on end began to dissipate. I felt happier and spiritually aligned. I'd never been to a place like that, where every corner had a spiritual and healing element to it. The more time I spent there, the less I wanted to leave. I felt right at home. I wrote down my thoughts in my journal, I read a book that fed my soul, and I reconnected with my essence. Of course, the girls and I had some fun too. I was sleeping in and not even worrying what I was eating because I was feeling so good and I was inspired to make the right choices for my body. While I was out there, I kept thanking God. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Johnny was 20 and he could take care of himself. My mom didn't need me. I didn't have a partner pressuring me to come back home. Even my dog Pancho was in good hands. It meant that I could just be. It also meant when our return was delayed, it didn't stress me out. I decided to make the most of it and enjoy an extra days on this oasis. So when the paparazzis found me on the beach and took pictures of me, I didn't even notice because I was honestly living my best life. I came to find out about them through Omi, when she called to tell me that they were leaked to the media. I asked her to send them to me. She hesitated and said, "They're not good." But I told her to send them to me anyway. When I got them, I started laughing. I showed the girls and they began to crack up too. Were they flattering? No, but I didn't care. I know who I am, and I know I'm not the thinnest girl in the world. I know there's room for improvement, and I know I might not need the bikini beauty standards, but I don't give a fuck. When I see those shots, what I remember is that I was walking to the beach like I was freaking Tyra Banks, with long legs and everything toned and in place, and I held on to that feeling. I was determined not to let anyone take that moment from me. On my last day in Tulum, I had a healing massage, and even though there was a party for the hotel guests, I decided to stay in, and so did my friends. I didn't want anything to contaminate my body. By then, I was ready to leave. I missed home, and I missed my structured life. During the past few years, I've suffered the end of relationships with romantic partners and close friends. Each of these losses pained me greatly, and they've made me grow as a person. This particular pain helped me open my eyes to what I could do better as a partner and as a friend, and also to what I won't tolerate and don't deserve. There are people who are meant to be with us for the long haul, and others who are only here for certain seasons in our lives to teach us specific lessons, and that's okay too. For a long time, I felt that I had to suffer for good things to happen in my life. No hay mal que por bien no venga, right? Well, yes and no. Every cloud does not have a silver lining, I believe that. But I've also realized that good things don't come only from cloudy days. Sunny days also provide wonderful gifts. I don't always have to go through shit in order to experience the positive outcomes that are around the corner. I don't want to needlessly suffer anymore. I want to live, learn, and evolve. I've also come to terms with the fact that I don't owe anyone an explanation about who I'm banging or dating, whether that's 1, 5, or 10 guys. After enduring such a painful public relationship, I now want to go back to keeping that part of my life to myself. Being in the reality show during my formative years as an adult really skewed my perception regarding what to share and what to keep private. I'm known for being open and honest in the public eye about what I'm going through, but now I know being a public figure doesn't mean I'm obligated to share everything. Some things are best enjoyed in the privacy of my own heart. And at the end of the day, it's my body, my kitty cat, and my life. My mama was the first one to teach me how to be unstoppable. If I was stuck, she replied, "Figure it out." If I fell, she'd say, "Dust yourself off and keep going." No obstacle was too large or too difficult to overcome in her eyes. And after she passed away, when I was about ready to give up, what kept me unstoppable were Johnny and Janica. I couldn't let them down. I couldn't abandon them. They already lost both parents. Even though I wasn't sure how to continue living, I picked myself up and did it for them. They are my pride and joy. Many people in my family criticize me because of how I raised Johnny and Janica. They think I've been too liberal with them, that I should have taken away their cars and phones when they were exploring their sexual identities. I heard it all. It was my fault because I have gay friends. It was my fault because I have my own gay experiences and was open about it. It was my fault because I wasn't strict enough. They will never know what it's like to raise other people's children. I had to step out of my sister role and into the role of a mom. I vowed to be patient, loving, and accepting. I guided them, and I was determined to embrace their individuality. I aimed to respect their process, while striking a balance between my mom's way of doing things and my own. She was very traditional and frowned upon experimentation and non-traditional sexual preferences, but I wanted to be there to support them along the way. The last thing I wanted to do was to drive them into depression. I know firsthand how devastating and lost that can make someone feel. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't respect me as a mom. To this day, when I get down and serious, they're like, "Oh shit, she's mad." And they respect what I have to say. I love them so much, and I want to help them navigate every stage of their lives. I'm so proud that I helped raise these great-hearted kids. I've seen Janica, the shy, self-conscious girl, blossom into this beautiful, strong, and confident woman who embraces her body and is wise beyond her words. She taught herself how to do her own makeup and developed the passion into a career. At her age, I wasn't even on my own 2 feet. Now she's making her own money and building her own empire. I wish for her to keep it at so that she can become an even bigger influencer and succeed at everything she sets her sights on. Far from my competition, she's my sister, she's my baby, and she's ultimately my inspiration. I wish only happiness for her and love too. May whoever she chooses to be with give her the love that she deserves. When I last texted her, "I'm so proud of you," she texted back, "I am who I am because of you." My heart flipped from how good that made me feel. I think Johnny's the smart from the 5 of us. At the moment, he's still searching for his purpose, that thing that will make him passionate and happy at work. We sit down and have conversations about this as I try to guide him when needed. But I know he's going to do great things. Just like Jenica, he's such an awesome kid, and I know that I really don't have to worry about him. Although I always will. He is out there, he's out with friends, and I ask him to come home, and he does. Our communication is open, honest, and on point. I allow him to be himself and to experiment, but I also step in and draw the line when needed, and he respects that. He listens to me, and I trust him. To all the fake pages on social media that like to talk so much crap about him, how he's never going to let me be happy, you have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. Johnny's not jealous, he's protective. We've been through hell and back together. All he wants is for me to be happy. He's my son, he's my brother, and he's my little partner in crime. And I will always have his back, and he will always have mine. When people look at me with pity in their eyes, "Wow, your mom didn't leave you anything?" I say, "Yeah, she did. She left me with 2 younger siblings. They're my inheritance. When my family gets upset because I don't promote my mom's stuff the way they want me to, I remind myself that I took care of the most important job. I raised her kids. I'm taking care of their minds and hearts. If they ever need anything, I'm here. They know that they can count on me. I'm taking care of the most important part of my mama's legacy and her most valuable possession, her children. What makes me unstoppable now? God. He inspires me to give my best, to do better, and to continue moving forward so that I can fulfill my mission and purpose in life, to help people. I refuse to be a victim of my past. I feel confident, I feel accomplished. I love who I am, and I want to help you love who you are. Singing isn't just my passion. It's a vehicle to reach long-term goals of motivating and empowering others. I want to bring my light to people's lives and through my music, and eventually also through motivational speaking. I've often experienced a vision of me singing in a huge arena filled with thousands of people and then falling into my knees in tears. After taking a few deep breaths, I pick myself up and start singing a worship song. I wasn't supposed to make it. I was abused by my dad as a child. I had a fallout with my mom, and she died without us having a chance to reconcile. I've been through rough and tumble relationships. I lost friends along the way. I have been estranged from my own family. I should have been a fucked up crackhead living in a garage for the rest of my life, but I'm not. Despite the adversities I've had to share, I'm still standing, and I'm still growing, and I know I can do more. Finding balance in life is a constant struggle, but I can do it. I know you can too, because we're all unstoppable. Life is in constant and unexpected motion. It shocks us, surprises, and makes us shed tears and burst out laughing. It also calls us to pause and contemplate our journey and, when necessary, redefine our paths. A few weeks ago, I decided that the time had come to sell my beloved yellow house. The overriding reason that pushed me to make this decision is that I no longer felt safe there anymore. So many people know where I live because of the Riveras and the series Mariposa de Barrio, that I often see TikTokers standing outside my gates filming videos for their profiles. Not to mention that the paparazzi drive by on the prowl. Each time that I have to travel, I'm knotted with worry thinking about Johnny in there alone. His safety is my priority, and so is my peace. It's with heavy heart that I felt that I came to this decision because I fell in love with my yellow house the moment I stepped foot into the path leading it to its front door 4 years ago. The place made me a first-time homeowner. It was the scene of my love and my heartbreak. It's where I celebrated my friends and family and where I received my first ever Latin Grammy. After we separated and Lorenzo moved out for good, I renovated the entire place, changing the furniture and replacing the floors. I was on a mission to get rid of the bad energy of that failed relationship and bring in the good vibes. I have great memories of all the fun times and parties I hosted in that house, but a lot of shit went down in there too. That's why when my financial advisor first ran the idea of selling it past me, I thought, maybe this is for the best. I'm ready for a change that will attract a more stable chapter in my life. A fresh wave of energy that will open new doors in my future. I'm ready to upgrade my home and my life. Something had already come knocking on one of those new doors. Love. It happened when I least expected it. A surprise birthday party I was hosting for my longtime friend Becky G on March 1st, 2021. When I came downstairs to meet the guest, I saw Emilio and my heart skipped a beat. We met about a year earlier at my photo shoot for the video of my hit song Jolene. Becky G asked if we could use her photographer. My team and I said yes. It was May 2020 and Lorenzo had just moved out of the house after one of our last major fights. When Emilio and I were first introduced, I said, "Oh, you have pretty eyeballs." Because he does. The shoot was all small talk and super professional. I never saw or spoke to him again until that night in March of the following year. Earlier that day, I decided to take the plunge, start exploring some dating apps. But that evening changed everything. Oh shit, it's the guy with the nice eyeballs, I thought. When our smiles met and we fell into a comfortable conversation, we were hooked. Soon after, we began dating, and everything was moving along just fine, until I noticed that he and Lorenzo were following each other on social media. Wait a minute, how do you know Lorenzo? I asked Emilio during one of our early dates. I just know him from a party we both went 7 years ago. It turns out that he had gone to a party with Becky G, and Lorenzo also happened to be there. They all hung out that night, and later followed one another on social media. They have mutual friends, but they never saw each other again. They never exchanged numbers, they never hung out, never talked or texted or DM'd, and never wrote anything on each other's pages, until recently when out of the blue, after 7 years, Lorenzo commented on one of Emilio's posts. Then soon after, he came out saying that the guy that I was rumored to be dating was his friend. His compa. Dios mío. When will it stop? When will he stop? The reason I'm not divorced yet, it's not because I don't want to be. It's because Lorenzo isn't complying. Contrary to what I've heard him say in the media, last time my attorney checked, there was absolutely nothing from him. No signed papers, no new clauses, nada. I've been waiting for months now. And you best believe I won't be putting my life on hold because of this new hurdle on my path. All I know is that I dodged a diamond bullet, but as infuriated as Lorenzo has made me sometimes, I honestly don't wish him harm. Our relationship simply didn't work out, and that's okay. It happens. But I think that being together taught us both a valuable lesson, and now it's time to move on. I really do wish him the best. Meanwhile, I'm dealing with other relationships that are on thin ice once more in my life. I no longer talk to my Tío Juan and my Tia Rosie. We don't even follow one another on social media. Jackie, once again, caught in the middle, unsure how to handle it all, but I'm being as patient and understanding as I can be with her because I don't want to lose her, and even distance myself from my abuelita. We still talk, but not like before. I miss driving to her house and eating her home-cooked meals, and I hope that we can find our way back to each other soon. Why is this happening now? Because after being told time and again that by the time he turns 25, he wouldn't have anything to his name, we just want to know if that's true. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing. My mama worked tirelessly for us. We know that. The world knows that. She said it herself countless of interviews. Johnny simply wants to see the number of the estate that partly belongs to him. We're not bad children for asking questions. Knowing what's there and what he can and can't count on the future will allow him to better plan his next steps in life. At the end of the day, as much as I wish that we could come together as a family, I also have learned that sometimes it's just better to love certain people from afar. Now, for the meantime in my life, I can confidently say that I'm no longer afraid to stand up for myself and what I believe in. I'm not afraid of the idea of getting married again, and I'm not even afraid of having children anymore. I'm eager to see what God, fate, and the future have in store for me. In the meantime, I will continue to work tirelessly for what I want, starting with my new show with Telemundo Universo, Chiquis y lo mejor de ti. This isn't a reality show. I'm finally being called on set to use my experiences to help others overcome their own battles, and I couldn't be happier. God gave me this life and this voice for a purpose, to help other people navigate their own shitstorms and come out better on the other side. This is the highlight of my new chapter, my high note, and it's all coming together, and I can't wait to see where it goes next.